go ahead and we'll go ahead and start.
You're good.
Thanks everybody for coming. We appreciate it. We always appreciate input from the public on our work sessions. I think in large part, what we're going to try to do today is get through all of or close to 2, 3, and 4, so that our next public session we can go ahead and implement or vote on the approval of these sections and move on to whatever we have coming up next. We'll discuss that when we get done with our discussions on the individual sections. Kurt, do you have anything from city or staff that you want to say before we get started?
Just that we can be done with these coaches.
I think we all want to do that.
I think we all feel that way.
Yeah, and I know that this board, it takes us a while to get through things, but I think it's because
You want to do it?
we want to do it right. And so it just takes too long. We don't want to leave folks in the shape that we're in when we started this whole thing. So
I will add that we did get we have kind of started to implement diagrams, and we're going through it. Each one of us is taking a stab at the not stab, but we're each reviewing the whole thing. So 2 weeks we'll have a triple reviewed code for the changes and for the
goody.
and then we'll try to use the AI to, I think that's a very good idea to use the current code, because it gets, when you use the red line version, it doesn't really work. I'm just gonna give you that. It doesn't really pick up all the red line stuff. I think if we use the existing clean the way it was before we started and the new clean without the red lines, we're thinking that might help. Yeah, so we'll try that by the next time.
Here's my concern as we're moving into AI world. A couple of things. One is that AI may change or modify language, and we get pretty specific about language in many cases. And AI changed the emphasis that or what we're trying to create in words about certain issues. So that's the one concern I have for AI. And of course, the other is just I'm using it because I'm starting to write a book, and I see how AI really makes a lot of changes.
Yeah, I mean, I have a lot of concerns about AI. I'm just kidding, but I think the recommendation, if you remember, from the whole planning commission 2 weeks ago was to try to figure out how it can just summarize all the details and provide a side by side, like kind of summary. So that was the recommendation that you all, and we were trying to, so we're going to work on trying to figure that out, not to allow it to write code or anything, just to give you the summary. So it's easier for you to make the final decision. And for council, when it goes to councils.
I appreciate that, and I will have to say that we're going to wind up relying heavily on you and your staff for your rewriting of these, because as we've gone through them, once we've gone through some sections, move on to other sections, we kind of forget about the sections we already went through. And so if there's any modifications or changes or things that need to happen, relying on you and staff to try and highlight those is really, really important. And I'll refer to just one thing, and I won't go into it, but today in our task force meeting that we just finished up an hour ago, an issue came up with ADUs and ADUs as it relates to the Northwest Quadrant Commons. And that I would like to, I haven't had time to look at it, but I think need to take another look at our code as it relates to those areas and whether or not we need to do single those areas out for ADUs and what the restrictions on ADUs are in those areas. And I'll look at that and ask y'all to look at that as well. So, but that's just something that, as I said, just came up this morning. So, thank you. Any other comments from the board before we get started? Any? Okay. And we all want to hear about Bill's trip, but maybe we shouldn't do that. So the first thing I have on the agenda that I always put there, and that's public comment. So I'll open it to public comment to begin with. And then just to clarify, after we get done with public comment, which basically is anybody can say anything they want about anything, hopefully pertaining mostly to these sections of the codes, but it could be anything. After that, we will go through and take a look at each of the code sections. I know I have some revisions, I'm sure other people do too. And we will allow public input as we go through those sections. So with that said, I'll open it up to any public comment anybody would like to have.
Hey, it's Graham Trask. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi. Yeah, thanks, Mike. I don't have any specific public comment, but as you can tell, I am on remotely, and some of the suggestions that are made here are quite important to me. So I hope that your IT person and you will be receptive to me raising my hand if need be to interject at various points throughout. It's quite hard to get the attention sometimes, so I'm just flagging it so people are aware, please.
Absolutely, we'll be happy to do that, and unless our IT guy is mad at you, I'm sure he'll.
All right, thank you.
Okay, well, Kurt, you kind of gave us a little intro here. Do you want to go through?
Yeah, these were just some items that have come up in the last month. Just as you referenced, we've been keeping this master list and not sending it out on computers. We updated it on our website every time. But so I wanted to just put it in the memo instead of trying to confuse everybody. But I guess what came up last time first in chapter 3 was the T5 UC RMX split zoning revision. So if you remember, I think a lot of the city on the major corridors were zoned kind of split zoning, so you can either do T5 UC or RMX. So RMX being like a mixed use district. That's more suburban or car oriented, whereas T5 UC is kind of a traditional form-based district that's more rural and urban. And right now, you can just pick one or the other if you own one of those properties. And I think we heard some commentary at the last planning commission, some concern about that. What was proposed was to basically state that if you were next to a basically an urban block, something developed in the T5 UC category, you would have to go to the 5 UC. So there was some concern about that. So, you know, basically it was just to remove that sentence, but to keep the sentences that say you have to pick one at the very beginning. Just pick and choose which district. But that has been going on. That was the whole purpose of this, to fix, you know, like if Mr. Hallman here wanted to develop and he had a split zone district like this, he could say, I want the windows to RMX, I want the, you know, the lot coverage T5 UC, I want the drive through RMX, I want the, you know, the setbacks to be T5 UC. So we're keeping this the code that says you got to pick one at the very beginning of the project, But no longer would you be forced to, you know, if you were next to like a T5 UC developed property to use. T5, so that was changed. That's not it.
Any discussion from the board related to that? I think, and purpose is so that we don't have split zoning anymore, that we get back to a single zoning issue. And I think this in my mind, I guess, does help resolve that. Any public comment related to that? Yes,
Just very briefly, the zoning,
go ahead and say your.
I'm sorry, Paul Trask, 16 William Street. The zoning is on next. It seems to be with the option for T5UC. Probably ought to keep the option if the developer wanted to go with T5UC out in the RMX, but not require as descendants is now struck. That if you that you have to go with T5UC if you have an adjoining property that way. So I think the change to the language is constructive and good, and it works.
Thank you. Any other comments? Seeing none, let's.
Yeah, so I've left his ability to speak on, so he's more than welcome to unmute himself. So but he hasn't raised his hand.
Okay, Eric, go ahead.
Okay, next, the bed and breakfast revision that was here on my part, none clear. So it's included here in the memo. The red line, you remember that was kind of the attorney's revision. And just, you know, it's kind of really adding a lot of definition section based on state statutes. That's the purpose, trying to bring it closer to the state statute.
Do we want to talk about that one now, or do we want to hear its introduction now?
No, I think we can talk about it now.
Okay, so I do have some questions. So you've added some definitions there, and I looked again this morning at the state statute. And the state statute does a lot more than our regulation does. And so my first of several questions is, maybe I'm just missing something, but why in this section of bed and breakfast do we have a definition of residential type lodging facility and innkeeper when those aren't terms that are even used as I see in the regulation? They're in the statute because the statute is broader, it deals more broadly, but there's no reason to include, as best I can see, a definition of a term that isn't even used in our regulation.
Just for clarification, in other words, there's a definition of innkeeper, but then nothing else in B, C, any of those.
Well, just, yeah, and it may be I've answered that. I don't think that, yeah, we include a definition of little Roman numeral 3 residential type lodging facility and little Roman numeral 4 innkeeper. But they're not actually used in our regulations, so I think you took them from the statute, but they're in the statute because the statute deals with more than what our regulation deals with. So that's number one, is I would just eliminate them unless there's a reason to have them there that I'm missing.
I think
Any comment on that, Kurt?
my only comment would be that these can be recommendations from the board to the city attorney.
I think you just missed it.
But I would say that we would go with what the city attorney.
Oh, yeah, I mean, in the end, he's gonna give his advice to the city
And I'm sure the
council.
city council will probably.
But I just think we take them out because they're, no purpose there. So that's my first thing I would say.
Is it because it's mentioned on the small line?
Well, let's see, as I said, if there's someplace that I missed it.
Oh, there in the definitions.
Yeah, residential type lodging facility is,
Yeah, but it means a residential type lodging. Oh, I see, there it is, okay, so I guess we're, we're defining a definition. I mean, you might just say a bed and breakfast is a facility that serves both the innkeeper's residence and the place of residence for lodging, instead of have a definition and then define the definition. That would be, yeah, so we're doing,
Right, innkeeper.
and then innkeeper is, I don't think I saw where that was used, so I would.
innkeeper is used in Romanet 3 under section 1.
Oh, yes, back to that.
Residential type lodging facility means a facility that serves as both the innkeeper's residence and a place for lodging for a transient. Yes, I would recommend that we take the word innkeeper in that Romanet 3 and give it a capital I, because it is a defined term. Does that make sense?
Okay, give me again where innkeeper is.
So if you, under bed and breakfast, you have Romanet 1, 2, 3, and 4. Romanet 3 includes the term innkeeper, which is defined in Romanet 4.
Okay, so I see, okay, yeah. So we're defining definitions, so we can either do that, I'll put it all into one, the definition, so we don't have to define it, just.
I don't have a problem with it the way it is, but I do think that word innkeeper should be given a capital I because it's defined.
And then you're correct there, okay,
I mean, it is circular, but
yeah,
it wouldn't keep me awake at night.
okay,
So, yeah.
all right, it is a certain way of doing it.
But I think it's because of this whole thing about owner occupied. The innkeeper definition in little Roman numeral 4 doesn't refer to the owner at all. It refers to the proprietor, which I think means the person who's running the business, and residential manager.
Yeah, a proprietor is I would say the proprietor is a person that owns the business, and either the proprietor, him or herself, runs the business, or that person may have a residential manager.
So that person, the owner, does not need to live there under this definition, as I read it.
That's correct.
That's correct.
Okay.
And that was, let's see here. Let's see.
Being as we can make this more restrictive if we want it. If there's a problem, we could add something saying that the proprietor must live within the city or the county of Beaufort.
I think, I'm sure he'll speak on it. Mr. Scarborough has presented me with a number of major cities that have required owners to homes.
Well,
To have a basal faulty, and that would make for a lot of hijacks.
so the definition comes from, well, let's see. Innkeeper in the statute says means proprietor of a bed and breakfast.
So I'm looking.
And so this definition seems to expand on it a little bit.
Yes.
Because they added or residential manager of the bed and breakfast who resides on the premises.
I'm just looking at the definition of proprietor. Proprietor is the legal owner of a business, property, or exclusive right. It is most commonly used in a business context to refer to the individual who owns, manages, and holds full responsibility for an enterprise. So there's a business and there's a property. There's a lot and a house, but there may be a business formed such as an LLC, and somebody else could have ownership of the LLC. That's what that's why I think the term proprietor is a little bit loose. And it leads to the kind of concerns that we've been hearing from Mr. Scarborough and others perhaps. If we, I think we should be plainer as to what that means.
Proprietor?
Well, maybe proprietor needs to be defined, or maybe we use another word. That,
What's your concern about that?
Yeah.
well, so, somebody lives as their main residence in Somerville. They also own a residence in Beaufort and they want to run it as a bed and breakfast. And they form an LLC in order to run this bed and breakfast in Beaufort.
Right.
So that person, whoever it is not the owner of the business. There could be other people, his wife, his brother-in-law, his business partner, whatever, that actually have the beneficial ownership of the business that is the bed and breakfast. And if we're trying to avoid that, and I'm not saying we are, but some people seem to think that there's a problem with that scenario. You know, we should address it with more specificity.
I think it's, the problem is accountability in my mind. It is accountability, and I think the residents of the city, if we're being responsive to that, it goes along with SDRs and everything else too. But if we're being responsive to that, particularly with bed and breakfast, that if we condition proprietor, someone that actually lives within the city and or county of Beaufort, at least there's an accountability factor that we're realizing if we do that.
Let me just try this thing. So the statute, which is, you know, that is what we're supposed to stick with, says that a bed and breakfast is a residential type lodging facility. Then it defines residential type lodging facility as one that serves as both the innkeeper's residence and the place for lodging of transient guests. And then it says an innkeeper is the proprietor. So what that means is if the innkeeper is the proprietor and the place is supposed to serve as the innkeeper's residence, and a proprietor is an owner, that means the owner is supposed to live there. And
Exactly.
And so I'm just, so
Can we say it a little plainer? We say the person who is running the bed and breakfast must live at the bed and breakfast.
well, but that's going, but that's seems to be less restrictive than the statute. The statute says the owner has to live at the place, not the person running it. And I think that the city attorney was making
owns
it.
and runs.
Yeah, so I think
Must live at the bed and breakfast.
that's what it seems to say. And so the easiest thing to do is maybe just go with the statute, you know, entirely. Maybe, I'm just throwing this out there. Now, you know, here's the thing. The statute at 45-4-20 goes to, that whole thing deals with bed and breakfast. And then 45-4-30 goes to a little bit more information about breakfast, you know, food types and stuff. And then -40 gets into food products and stuff. If we just took the -20 and the -30 and just made them our regulation, then we would just quote the statute in its entirety. That might be the easiest way to get around it. Because we're causing problems by ourselves, it seems, by kind of doing these things in a little bit different way.
Well, I suggest that statute, which is an old statute, has some ambiguity to it. And the ambiguity in the statute has translated it into issues in our town about bed and breakfast. And we have a chance to clarify.
Well, we can't clarify the statute.
Well, we certainly can,
We
by
can't make it
making
more
it less restrictive.
No, we can make it more restrictive, we can't.
That's what I
make it
mean,
less
yeah, more
restrictive.
restrictive.
Yeah. But I think just to that one issue that I said, it sounds like when you read the statute and it's, we all might have written it differently, but it sounds like the innkeeper has to be an owner and he has to live there. I mean, when I say it sounds like, I mean, that's the literal reading in a little bit less than straightforward manner, but that's a literal reading.
Well, I would just interject as to the first of those, the innkeeper being the owner. If the innkeeper was the owner through the vehicle of a limited liability company, I think that still meets the requirements of statute. I just want to see if everybody agrees with that. Because if I were gonna run a bed and breakfast anywhere, I would not own that property in personal name. I would want to own it in a limited liability company for liability reasons. I would never.
I agree with you completely on that, but
I don't know that the state statute prohibits that, because even if I own the LLC that owns the property, maybe not directly, but I think I still own the property.
right, I mean, an LLC or a corporation can own one of these facilities. And probably when this thing was written, certainly corporations were in existence. The LLC is a relatively new, invention. I can't remember. I remember when it came to Kentucky in the 80s, maybe. But my guess is that most people, tried to limit their liability by owning these things in a corporate or an LLC form.
So putting aside residents, can everybody agree that if you own the bed and breakfast through the vehicle of an LLC, you still own it?
Are you?
Sure.
Wait a minute, I don't know that I agree with that because
Ah.
LLCs often have numerous members,
Right.
such as a whole family or a whole group of other LLCs or things like that.
Right.
So, and then there's a managing member of an LLC.
Correct.
So do we have to be sole ownership?
If you want to continue.
No, I don't think it has to be.
I don't think, I wouldn't get that deep into the weeds. As long as, I wouldn't, like I said, I wouldn't get, as long as there's a owner. As long as there's a owner you can point to. And I know an LLC can own another LLC if you get very complicated, but as long as we can point to a owner, I would be fine with that. The only point I'm trying to get to is that if a person owns a bed and breakfast through the vehicle of a limited liability company, I think that still comports with the state statute that Bill is looking at right now. I just want to see if everybody agreed with that.
So the innkeeper is the proprietor.
It doesn't say or residential manager.
No,
that's what.
No,
So we need to
that
take that out.
is the proprietor. And the innkeeper has to live there. So if the proprietor is an LLC, which is an entity, then it would tend to mean that some member of the LLC would have to live there. Now that could be a.
If I could interject briefly, I might be able to help a little bit.
Sure, go ahead.
I think the law of Scarborough 1207 Bay Street, Beaufort. When the law was written, people weren't putting these things in LLC. I was there when the law was written.
Right.
And so you're correct, LLCs are basically new. And as I understand it, LLCs, and I have several LLCs. LLCs have a principal who is the main controller of an LLC. And as I understand it, if you're the principal of an LLC and that LLC owns the bed and breakfast, that principal is the person that would be then be the proprietor that needed to live there. Just like I think you were trying to say, I think you were saying the same thing. Maybe I'm not putting words in your mouth, but the principal would be the person that needed to live at the bed and breakfast. It's a new concept with the LLC. None of that has been tested in the court of law yet. So if I were y'all and I'm sitting in your seats, I think I'd take the position of what the state statute is, what the state statute says, try not to delve into what an LLC does or does not do, because I think you're scratching into new ground and could possibly get into problems. I think the best thing to do is to take the state statute like Bill was talking about, place it into y'all's statute. If you want to make it more restrictive, make it more restrictive. If you want to leave it just a plain state code of what the state said, leave it that way. Either way, I think it's fine. But to delve into the possibility of what an LLC is and who the main stakeholder of LLCs do have to stay there, I think that's getting into a little bit of scary territory. And me personally, I would stay away from that kind of thing. But that's just my 2 cents. Trying to help.
You know, I think that may be the best way to do it, is because we've been talking about this for a long time.
It's absolutely the best way to do it, but if we do it that way, then we should just do it exactly as the statute says it and leave it at that. No add-ons or.
Unless we make it more restrictive in some other respects. Like there shall be no other B&B in the T3 and T4 end, we can still have that, you know,
Yeah,
that's
that kind
exception,
of
that
stuff,
kind of thing, so we can have any more restrictive language, but otherwise. Just do what the statute says, and that, I think you only have to do those 2 sections, or, and other plan features is 45-4-20, which is a definition section, and 45, and take out any definitions in that don't pertain, and there might be one or so, to bed and breakfast, and then 45-4-30.
So let me ask you, if we took the state language and dropped it right into our development code, does that mean that a person here in Beaufort would be prohibited from owning a B&B through the vehicle of a limited liability company?
I think that, no, I don't think so. But on the other hand, you know, some of these tricky questions about, you know, can, say it's a several member or large number of people in the LLC, and you have somebody in there with, that's, you know, has a almost insignificant stake in it. Can that person constitute the proprietor? May end up having to be a question, you know, for a court to ultimately determine. You know, I think it's probably fair to say that, just as Wallace said, is that they weren't thinking about these limited liability companies when they drafted this. Because it was, you know, it was somebody decided to offer breakfast to some occasional guests in their home, and that was a bed and breakfast. And then it started becoming a huge operation. And in a community like Beaufort or Charleston or something, you can see why people would want to do this and, you know, have 10 bedrooms and run it almost like a hotel, you know. But I don't think that's what they were thinking. And maybe they were thinking of it the way they were thinking of it because they didn't want it to expand into such a large enterprise. And that's why I guess we have to leave it up to the courts to finally make some of these interpretations for us, and us trying to figure it all out here. You know?
We put it up on the screen, the state statute.
Yeah.
You can see it. I think Bill was talking about 45-4-20. I think you were talking about just adopting that, the whole first section. I think then the question becomes about the, you know, spacing, meals, events, I think are the more specific stuff. So if you go down, then it just gets into food service. And,
Yeah, when you get to subsection 40, you just you get rid of it at that point, because that doesn't pertain.
down a little bit there. You can just look at food service here.
If I can interject one more little point too, just because the state statute says things, it does say it, but that doesn't mean y'all actually have to put it in your code. It still stands up on the state level.
Well, that's right.
And it has to be enforceable. So in my opinion, just because it goes into food service and things like that, that's the state law. That's really it. And y'all don't have to be redundant on state law necessarily unless you want to be. I think it's just a repeat that's not necessary personally. You could just let state statute stand on its own and be silent on food service and stuff if that's what you'd like to do.
That's right.
I think that makes quite a bit of sense.
Right.
That we could just refer to the state statute as it may be amended from time to time.
Right.
And just leave it at that.
Well, that's the other option is we don't do anything except just,
That's
just
easier.
reference
That's
the
even
state
easier.
statute. Just entirely, just take it all out and just reference the state statute. Maybe that's the.
That may be amended from time to time,
Yeah.
exactly, probably.
Exactly. Yeah, that may be the
If
thing.
you do that, you know, there is a few differences in our code, like if you read the meals section, it says no meals will be served to anyone on the registered guest. Doesn't say, if you look at the state statute, it says continental or full breakfast to registered guests or a tea type service to registered guests. So ours is a little less restrictive.
Well, we can't be.
Eat less.
No, I know,
I know, and I
I'm
would,
just pointing these out, and the spacing requirement, you know, would you wanna keep that in, and the parking, requirement?
Yes, yes.
And the sign requirement.
I mean, we might wanna add, you know, the more restrictive provisions, but anything that's less restrictive or arguably so, like the meal, you know, events. I was gonna bring up that because we had said, under events, we said, provided that events are hosted for registered guests only. Well, you added the word only, which was good, but the word hosted was very, that was a little bit unclear. I think we just do like, even I've just kind of said, and Paul said, it's just reference the statute and then put in the more limiting provisions and just be done with it.
What are the more limiting provisions?
The parking,
Signs,
the
parking
signs.
spacing, meals, I think it has 10 units, right? It has 10 rooms, right? Yeah.
Yeah, that, yeah.
So really, that would
All
be it.
that's the same.
D, E, and F, or D, E, F, and G, I think are the, where we've actually in some ways been less restrictive than the state.
Okay, but if we just reference the statute, do we need to add to our reference of the statute some more restrictive provisions? Are there any?
Well, I think then your spacing would be more restrictive than the state, so would the parking and the signage.
Those were the three.
And that's because they're regulated elsewhere in the code?
They're not regulated elsewhere.
Okay.
This would be specific to them.
Now, I will say on the state,
Offense you might wanna speak on, because, you know, we'll get complaints and it'll be hard for code, you know, is the code enforcement officer gonna go to the state statute?
Take our recommendation, and I guess what we're doing here is we're gonna make recommendations back to the city attorney. And then city attorney will act on whatever he thinks.
so,
Well, no, what happens is
Or
when you're
the-
done with a final draft, I just decided, since this was getting controversial, just to send it to him.
he can look at
Of
everything.
him, but he'll look at all of the recommendations and he'll make comments or suggestions. And
Okay.
council will see his suggestions from his meeting. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Well, I hope we get his comments back too.
On the spacing issue.
If you had it on this, you got it.
Yeah, we have it here, but we're talking about making some substantial changes
On
to
these,
his right now.
we're just suggesting that because he was making some changes to ours, so we're just saying, I think, go with the state statute, except where we're more restrictive. And there were three things: sign, parking, spacing. On the spacing thing, I just have a question about the word proposed. It says that we should no other B&B in a T3 or T4 HN zoning district located within 500 feet of a proposed B&B. Don't we mean of an existing?
I don't know why it said that.
It's,
That's what the existing code said.
Okay, you're right.
yeah, it's gotta be existing. Proposed would be something in the future.
I think that meant that, Dean. In other words, you're proposing a B and B and you gotta look around and see if there's others within 500 feet, I think.
Yeah, well, that's proposed word is not the right.
Oh, okay.
You might say there should be no B&B proposed in a such and such within 500 feet of an existing,
Yeah.
but you know,
So you might keep that.
so fix the word proposed to existing and then. fix
Could we
that.
maybe, for, events, should we like maybe just reference the state statute on that?
No, we got the state statute on everything.
Okay.
I think because events is one of the more controversial areas, let's just stay away from it.
So what about operation? Our code says B and B shall be operated by a resident manager living on the premises. How does that fit with the state code?
Yeah, let's put that state, hold on a second.
I'm guessing the city attorney thought that it was no problem vis-a-vis the state code because he didn't touch that section H, right?
I think he was trying to be a little more definitive,
Okay.
is what I thought.
Who knows what he was thinking, but I think that it's also possible that he was just sitting there at his own desk by himself and he wasn't sitting there with a group of people kind of thinking through these things.
Well,
When you get a group like this,
Yeah.
you know, all of a sudden you get me thinking about something, I get, you know, Kimberly thinking about something and then all of a sudden we're all thinking about something entirely different. I think where it's gonna end up is if we do this is this. I think what'll happen is the city attorney will interpret the state statute when we're all said and done. And then if there's a challenge, you know, it'll be in the courts, but at least then it's gonna be where it should be, just purely in the legal realm. And my only thoughts, and probably yours would be the same in this regard, is to avoid trouble is to read it as literally as, read the statute as literally as possible.
That would mean we would recommend taking out that little, is it G or H?
Gee.
Doesn't really state anything about events, does it?
Well.
I'm talking about the resident manager provision.
There was an F in the existing and Kurt changed it to a G in the memo we just got. Vince, because he added this A definition section.
Okay, well, I also think the resident manager provision, which I guess is H, needs to go.
Yeah. The operation section.
Yeah, maybe we should just summarize all the changes, but events, do they have events in the state? I just can't remember offhand.
No, they really just talk about who, you know, who do you get to,
Events weren't supposed to be allowed on state statute. They didn't
Right.
want a bed and breakfast to be an event venue.
right?
And the way it reads is all everything that they do in a, see, Charleston didn't want bed and breakfasts, inns and hotels competing for the same people and the same businesses. Bed and breakfasts were mostly in residential areas, inns and hotels were in commercial zones. And in the commercial zones, they were having wedding events and receptions and things like that. People didn't want weddings, receptions, and parties in residential neighborhoods. And so Charleston came to us and said, we don't want bed and breakfasts, one, having parties and events in our residential neighborhoods, so we want it restrictive. And the hotels and innkeepers came to us and said, we don't want a bed and breakfast to compete against us for venues. So we don't want them to be an event venue, but we don't mind them doing anything they want to do for their residential, the guests that are staying there. So if you have a 10-room bed and breakfast and they want to have an event, they rent out the whole inn and they want to have a dinner or they want to have an event, so be it. But we don't want them bringing in hundreds of cars into our residential neighborhoods, choking up our streets, taking our parking spaces and causing havocs, just like the the short-term rentals discussion that we're having now, people coming in and out a lot. So that was the idea, was a bed and breakfast was supposed to fit quietly in a neighborhood and cater to the people that are staying there. And that's what the thing was, to let the inns and the hotels take care of all these events or an event venue.
That makes a lot of sense, and so. Hey, you could say the B&Bs in T3 zones and T4 HN, no events except for people that are staying there. But if you happen to have a B&B in T4N or anywhere where an inn or a hotel is permitted, go for it. Doesn't matter that you're building a smaller hotel. You want to have an event there. Because it's historic building or something. I don't know that it's ever gonna be the case, but why not?
Well, they can still petition to the city council and say, we want to have a special event at our place. I did that in my house just recently for Historic Beauty Foundation. They went to city council and said, we want to have an event at Scarborough's house. They got a permit to do the event. We had 200 people having dinner on our lawn. But that was an event that was applied for. And so you can still do that if you want to apply for the permit and nobody, so you can still do
I
that.
think that's probably a good way to do
But maybe we put
it. That,
other events must be permitted through application to
Yeah.
city council.
yeah, I think that would be appropriate.
Okay, so events, it's going to be by, I don't know.
That way, if your neighbors are opposed to it, they can show up. talk.
Yeah, but I don't know, you,
That's
so
it.
you're saying that you can do that for B and Bs?
Yes,
I would think you could do that for a home or a business or
Yes,
or
anybody.
BD, I think if you want to petition the city council for special events, I don't know why that's unnecessary, or if, I think there's something in statute that says, bed and breakfasts can host an event for nonprofit, like once every 2 or 3 months or something like that. I think that might be in there.
I seem to remember it said something limiting it to 10 per year or something.
It's something like that.
In the statute?
I think it's in the,
We got it up right now, so.
it's somewhere in the law that I've read. I can't be making that up, but I think it's somewhere.
But I think that,
It might be in our code and.
I believe that would be the exception, is that events would have to go through approval process, the city council.
I don't see it in the statute, but
Okay.
do we have an ordinance or a code provision pertaining to special events licenses, or is that in a whole and entirely different ordinance?
We do have a special event licensing procedure.
Not in the development code, probably.
It's not in the development code, it's in the regular code. There's a whole process to go about it.
Is there a citation for that, or?
That's fine.
But if, okay, in T5 downtown core, you can have a hotel permitted. And I would say that if your hotel could have a wedding and host it outside without going to city council, I'm guessing like
I think
the
that's
Beaufort Inn does that. And so let's say that you want to have a bed and breakfast, let's say the house on Port Republic at the corner of Port Republic, a historic house. The Simmers own it, the corner of Port Republic and Charles. Let's say that decided to turn into a bed and breakfast. It's in T5 downtown core, I think. It just seems that they should be able to do a wedding outdoors without going through a lot. If 2 doors down, they could. So all I'm saying is if your bed and breakfast is in a residential zone, you gotta go through all these hoops, or maybe you can't do it. But if your bed and breakfast is in T5, UC, T5 downtown core, or maybe even T4N, you just follow the same rules that they do for an inn or a hotel, whatever those rules are. That was what I think what I got from what you were saying.
Yes.
Yeah, that's. Yeah, it depends on where you're located, not
Depends on your
what you are, you might say.
Zoning what you are, yeah. And that's why you make zoning, so you can have.
Right,
commercial district.
Yeah,
So
because that is a historic house. And it is in the same zoning district as the Beaufort Inn, so.
Well,
It's a smaller building, but they should follow the same rules.
there's a lot of, there's a confusion in my mind also about what is an inn. As opposed to a bed and breakfast.
The state code, the state statute defines what an inn is.
Well,
But a hotel.
the state statute. Says that a bed and breakfast means a residential type lodging facility that includes a bed and breakfast, a homestay bed and breakfast, and a country inn.
Right.
So it basically is saying that a bed and breakfast goes by several different names.
Yeah.
If it does these things, provides just breakfast and under 10 guests, then in our next section of the code, right after this thing we get for bed and breakfast, we just say inn/hotel/motel, include it all together, and we say specific to Q4N, inns up to 10 rooms are permitted. Well, but that's also a bed and breakfast is up to 10 rooms. I mean, what are we doing here? And then it says inns with 11 to 24 rooms are permitted in, that's another question, permitted in retail frontage overlay areas. If you go to the definitions in our code, I mean, we may have to clean up a number of things there.
I think the inn is 11 plus units. I think it's based on the number of units, not styling or that kind of a thing.
Well, then why do we say inns up to 10 units?
I think we got old code in Beaufort code and it didn't keep up with state statute is what I think it is.
But also just even independent of that, we've got when you look at our code, we have a definition of lodging. Which we have a bed and breakfast, 10 or fewer rooms, and then we have inn 6 to 24 rooms. But what about that overlap between?
I would say that's something that should be changed. That doesn't sound right.
Well, it is specific to T4N is I mean, not that it necessarily changes anything, but it's specific to T4N is the up to 10 rooms are permitted and then the between 11 and 24. I think it still probably needs to change, but just.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but what is an inn, you know? As opposed to a bed and breakfast.
I think inns can have restaurants, and can have events, inns can do a lot of things. They have a manager or a night manager, it's not owned by the proprietor.
Well, and that may be, but then why do we allow them inns up to 10 rooms are permitted in T4? Is that really what we intend?
Well, I think there's a difference too between an inn and a bed and breakfast, especially when it comes to historic buildings. And I think the intent, my interpretation has always been the intent for a bed and breakfast is that's probably in a historic residential structure.
Mm-hmm.
And so they don't have to go through all of the upgrades that you would have to go through if you become an inn.
Exactly.
And an inn then forces you into fire protection, and
Exactly.
and those kinds of things. So there's a construction related issue, construction code related issue that an inn forces you to comply with, whereas a bed and breakfast is thought of more of residential and more historical, so that your kitchen doesn't have to be a commercial kitchen in a bed and breakfast.
Correct.
But
Probably another reason why we should probably have them apply for a permit in these homes. They're not really capable for design for, large.
or for events, you're
Right.
talking about, yeah. And I don't think I disagree with that, because they should be more, like if I wanted to hold a wedding at my house. Up until now, I've always thought, well, I'd just go ahead and have one for 30, 35 people. So that's all I could possibly accommodate, but I probably need or would need to actually apply through the city and say, I'd like to do this so that they have the ability, and maybe that could be an administrative thing too. Maybe it doesn't have to go to the city council, maybe the administrator would have the ability to yay or nay it or say, no, I need to take this to city council, depending on what the event is.
Well, then we'd have to have guidelines for the administrator to apply, like, what is an event? How many people constitutes an event? Is alcohol that be served? Is it gonna be catered by a third party that, you know?
But you look at the code that he just had cited to us, and it says if it's a nonprofit organization, they can do it. Well, they have all the same issues.
But that's why we have a controversy here, is because the code is not adequate to really administer. And so we have disputes among neighbors and, you know, different factions think.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
May I just interject? I think the code is actually clear. If in the bed and breakfasts are a carve out to go into residential neighborhoods, because otherwise, renting rooms out is not allowed in a residential neighborhood, period. But the bed and breakfast is a carve out, which allows that based on certain strict requirements as articulated in the state law. So I think you guys are on the right track there. As far as the events are concerned, the city code does have requirements for events, and you have to get them approved, and they have to be approved by city council. I think that, and there is a process, and just as Mr. Scarborough articulated, and that would be required for a bed and breakfast in a residential, which is going in a residential neighborhood. Bed and breakfasts de facto are in residential neighborhoods. And so those requirements are designed to protect the residents who are in the residential neighborhood. And I believe it's a risk to allow staff, no slight to the staff, to approve those in differently than are required already in the code. And so it seems to me you move forward with aligning with state code. And if there are events that want to be that a bed and breakfast owner wants to hold at the bed and breakfast, they have to be approved by city council or by the code as it's stated in the code. It's quite simple.
So right now, we're just talking about this, I think partly about this in thing is, it's just unclear to me what, once you are an inn as opposed to a bed and breakfast.
May
What
I
are
interject one thing real quick about this, please?
Yeah.
An inn, as Chairman Toomey was saying, they have a lot of commercial requirements the bed and breakfasts don't have, such as ADA approved bathrooms, ADA approved ramps for wheelchairs, public bathrooms.
No, I get it, but I'm just saying, here is the definition in our code of what that is. That's
Oh,
what
I
I'm
don't know,
saying.
I don't know that it's in there personally.
No, it isn't.
And so and just to finish, my one more point was, and that's why you don't want these bed and breakfasts really to have events because of the bathrooms and because of the access and because of, as the chairman was saying, they don't have to live up to all the codes. So I think that's the real difference. And if you want to put into the code that inns are this, and this is what inns get to do because they have to abide by these codes, I think that's appropriate personally.
Yeah, that's all I'm really saying is because we've been intended to be focused, although it isn't just because of the players that have come to the meeting on a particular bed and breakfast in a particular location,
But still, the inn is under lodging. I think we talked about this in maybe February, but
that's what I just said, is this,
yeah, so
I read the
24 rooms, yeah, so just so everybody can see it on the line,
and I read that, but I just said it still doesn't, so
I think.
if it says inns up to 10 rooms are permitted in T4N,
Should be deleted.
that's what I'm getting at.
Yeah, this definition should be
Because if we're saying that a bed and breakfast we're gonna go by the state statute, and somebody just says, well, I'm just an inn then, not a bed and breakfast.
Yeah, that makes.
You know, but then somebody says, well, how are you different? Just, I would call myself an inn, but there's no, you know.
I think the only thing I want to make sure we're careful of, because I live down in an area that has all this, is we have, the city classifies everything as a bed and breakfast now, and we don't really classify them as inns. I don't think Kurt's listening to me.
It's city.
We were just, I was trying to find the end thing where it's up to 10.
Yeah.
Change that.
My problem is there's a disconnect between what the city is calling inns and bed and breakfasts, what their licensure is and what we're writing the codes for.
Right.
And we have a situation where I believe that we have some of our inns that are actually classified as bed and breakfast because they're in historic structures won't meet the codes as an inn.
Right.
And they're historic structures. So they can be grandfathered now, but what happens during the sale? Does that transfer with the land or not?
It runs.
I think.
Well, you're getting things mixed up. The licensing statute is entirely different, you know. We're just dealing with the code, and the chairman is correct that cities should start calling these things by their correct
Well,
name.
yeah, we
with the
have-
code.
We have to
But the grandfathering thing is, as I've said before, is if somebody is, take a bed and breakfast, if they are legally, if they were operating prior to the state statute in a manner that was incompatible with the state statute, they would have a very good argument that they're grandfathered. The new law can't make them change what they were already doing if they were legal at the time.
Correct.
So and that runs with the land, irrespective of whether it's you or somebody else that owns it in the future. That's the issue. I think that I do think the city, separate apart from what we're doing there, should start licensing these things in a manner consistent with the development code that we're trying to fix, right? That would be helpful. But right now, if we can just
Well,
fix,
I think that's an absolute, somehow,
they should.
if we're gonna have clarity in the code, we've got to have
In the
parallel clarity in action,
in the
what we're
license,
actually
correct.
saying and doing.
So how does that come up? Let's say you're in the historical district and you've historically been a bed and breakfast, but you're really an inn. So I assume you have to renew your license periodically. So when they renew their license, do they renew as a bed and breakfast or do they renew as an inn? Is that how it comes up or?
Well, right now, we don't have a good definition of what an inn is. We need to fix that.
It would, but I don't think if you're in a historical structure, you can't make yourself become an inn unless you spend a lot of money.
Yeah.
A lot of.
And you may not ever be able to, quite frankly, because they're historic structures. There's things that, are obstacles. So they would be grandfathered. So it's just a question of what happens to them if they're passed on or sold.
Well, Kurt's already said that it runs with the land.
They're gonna be grandfathered if they were in existence prior to the adoption of the state statute. You know,
That's correct.
if they came about a day later, then they're not.
But
You know,
then again, I don't know.
but I'm guessing that these old things like Beaufort Inn and Red House predated. Because the statute was just like 1994 or something like that.
Yeah.
Let's just, I think we decide a lot of things. So what do you want to do with the end? And then we'll just summarize everything. Do you want to
Is
just
there a
remove?
state regulation that we can refer to? A state law we can refer to as in, or in?
I think we need to, I think we need to refine the definition of an inn a little bit. To me, it makes sense if you have a bed and breakfast that goes up to 10 rooms, then an inn would be anything.
Well, how is
10
it,
10 and up.
Yeah.
well, why do we even, I'm sure it's just a question as well.
Why can't it just be a hotel and?
Why can't it just be a hotel motel, and then we regulate if we wanna, if we wanna allow different sizes of hotels. I mean, hotels and motels aren't very different anymore. I mean,
Yeah,
we used to know what they were.
boutique hotels.
Yeah.
The small hotels are no longer in, they're boutique.
A lot of hotels have decided to call themselves hotels.
It seems the only reason to have the inn is this issue on the T4N where it says you can go 11 to 24 rooms. But you could just eliminate inn altogether and just say hotel, motel,
Under
11 to 24.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, simple.
That would be easier.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, that
Well,
would
if we're all
be
good
easier.
with that, let's just summarize all the things that we've discussed today and make sure that.
I think that
we
would,
got them all.
I think if we got rid of the inn thing and called it a hotel, motel. And then if you wanna, just as Libby said, allow small hotels, and motels in certain districts, and just do it that way.
Smart enough to know what other implications there are for calling something a hotel.
No, I don't think you want, no, we don't want to do that. We want to get.
I don't think it's.
We want to get rid of I.
You have to leave that first.
And then just put, you don't even have to put. You just put,
Okay.
11, 12, 24 rooms are permitted.
You could say just lodging facilities.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good
Yeah,
idea.
that's,
Lodging
that's, yeah.
facilities.
You can call yourself whatever you want.
Well,
Yeah, you kind of define the definition. You know,
Is that all?
I'm stuck in the historical side. It doesn't make any difference, you know,
Well,
we
except-
can make whatever codes we want. I'm just.
Well, except the
Trying to
lodging,
be protective about the
of
historical.
course, but our definition of lodging includes short-term rentals. So we're gonna get, and it includes rooming and boarding houses, so we probably ought to be careful with that.
I guess.
Okay, so let's put it hotels, motels.
Like what you're saying, like the existing inns, I know we're gonna start referring to them as hotels from now on.
Yeah, I don't think you want to do that.
Well,
I don't
the
know.
license wouldn't have to be the same as like the name of it.
Yeah.
I mean, you could still be the Beaufort Inn and have a hotel license.
Call yourself whatever you want.
Right.
But I don't know what the codes, if there's differences in the codes as it relates to hotels. If you keep upgrading, your codes upgrade as you move forward in these definitions. And so I think you're putting yourself into a whole different category if you go to hotel from inn. That's my guess.
Well, I mean, looking at fishes, that's.
Yeah, I mean, I had a little thing about that a few months ago. I can find it. It's in the memo.
I don't think we can change it right now.
I've just looked up the South Carolina State Code 4510 states definition of a hotel is defined as an inn or public lodging house with more than 10 bedrooms.
There you go.
Okay, yeah,
I think
it's
we've-
based on the number of.
That's the way we
rooms.
would.
So 11 to 24, so we fixed it. We need to fix the definition then to 11 to
Yeah,
24 rooms spending. Okay. We'll go to definitions.
and a bed and breakfast is 3 to 10 rooms. And that's in state code.
You know, when you just said a
So just
hotel was
put
over,
put the ins back.
it was a hotel.
They just
over-
define hotel in state code and that's more than 10 rooms.
And they're simultaneous, I mean, they're the same thing, inn and hotel,
Yes,
over 10, yeah.
yes.
That's what, and so that's what we would do, is just kind of call that. And we can do inn/hotel/motel, we just have the whole thing.
Yeah.
But they're one and the same.
Except that additionally, the inn usually has historical or rustic features that a hotel might not have.
Yeah.
And there's certain common law duties that arise for inns.
But for as far as our code is concerned, we're just looking at them, it's the same thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so these are recommendations that are gonna go to the city attorney.
Yeah, and let's,
One thing, are we,
let's summarize what we're doing, just so I get it. So I get you're here. So he's making a change to the code right here, just so we don't forget that in the red. And then we're gonna have to go to the definition. So from 6 to 24 to 11. No. Chapter 30. Yeah. Okay, chapter 30. Okay. Okay, so let's just summarize here and you can write this down, so. So, number one, breakfast, we are going to copy basically 45, oh, you're on the wrong. Actually, no. Okay. The first part is gonna be, do you want to reference? You just want to reference to 45:20, or do we just want to copy that?
I'd reference it. I think there's reference.
We'll say 45 for,
And you were gonna put in, I guess, there was a suggestion, it's subject to, state revisions in that, is that correct?
See, section, as amended from time to time.
Yeah.
45, 20 as amended. Would you like to just write that down here? Let's just put it there. Bed and breakfast instead of, and then in section 45, as amended.
Is that amended from time to time, is that right?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so now let's get rid of number of guest rooms and get rid of that whole front part. So that whole thing. So, yeah, get rid of it all. Okay, now get rid of number of guest rooms. I know. This is why it gets weird when we get to the red line. Added. The guest rooms goes away. All of them. Is everybody comfortable with the signage staying the same? Because this is something specific to Beaufort, to be more regulatory. 5 square feet, okay.
And sign things should stay in,
Okay. Parking,
the parking should stay in.
okay. Spacing, is everybody okay with the change, getting rid of proposed? Right. Do we want to add T4N or,
On the spacing thing,
yes,
just
or
that,
just leave it?
that word proposed, change that to existing. Did you
We've
think
got that, we've got that. There is a question in there about T4N. If you just want to put, give an exemption.
You can do an office, T4N.
That's why we,
Yeah.
so let's just get rid of that.
Thank you.
Okay,
So the spacing only applies to what did you say? I can't see it from here. The T3N or
T3 or T4HN.
and otherwise no spacing.
That's, that's where
Okay,
the spacing is.
let's get rid of the meals because that'll go. We want to leave the no variances from the meat. It's not allowed anyway because.
No, you can't do that. Just take the whole.
Okay, and then events, do we want to put a special events permit issued by the city will be required, is required? That goes through downtown operations. They have a whole
Assuming that.
4-page guideline of your liability insurance and all sorts of other things that come along with that.
But it was for events other than
Okay,
registered guests.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, but.
Not all events, but just if it's other than.
except for,
As long as you don't think that's violating the state statute.
I don't
I'm
know.
not so sure.
Just making sure we're all on the same page, so doesn't matter to me. I'm agnostic. Special event permit.
I mean, I probably
It's required for all events.
I don't know why you wanna. People be, I just don't know why.
Is that what we want?
I mean, you really wanna allow special events in these things?
I think you need to.
Why?
This town, well, okay, this town right now has weddings going on
Yeah,
almost every single weekend.
but you wanna have
And you
almost
wanna
every single weekend.
Cancel them and not have them anymore?
No, but do you wanna have, that's, I think, one of the big issues, is if you got a bed and breakfast next to you, you know, it's because the state statute allows you to have it under limited circumstance, but if all of a sudden, you know, another regulation says you can have a 200-person wedding there every weekend, That just changes everything.
You're not, you have to go through city council.
Yeah, but city council may decide that you can have one there every weekend. Why, I just don't see why you would do that.
Well, I think that you can't have any, it's just being overly restrictive. I think you're just gonna drive some people out of business.
I don't know the statute. I don't see anything in the statute that says that you can get around, you can take away, you can give with one hand, which is taken away by the legislature.
So we just want to keep it the way it is, but the only added, that's what we have. Registered guests only. Business meetings, receptions, teas, and other events are permitted provided that the events are hosted by registered guests only.
No, you can't have, you have to take out hosted. Hosted allows for what we, for any event.
I think that's correct. I don't think the word hosted.
You can't leave the word hosted in there.
I mean, I think that if you want to have the events thing, and then there, you can have all that, like, provided that the events are limited to registered guests only.
Okay.
Correct.
Limited,
Fine.
yeah, I mean, that's pretty clear.
But
That's limited to registered guests. Perfect.
and I think we should be silent on the whole special events thing, you know.
I would agree. I would agree with that, excuse me, because that's how it is with everybody. It's silent. And so you have to.
So we don't need to mention it,
Right.
they'll just do it anyway.
With this change, you know, a wedding, right? If they're not a registered guest, then
They can't show up.
they can come. Correct.
So
Yeah, we don't.
pretty much eliminates it.
I think
Well, we
you're,
don't-
You can have more than 10 people at a wedding.
Well, we don't put in, like, if I have, my son gets married at my house, I mean, I could have a wedding for my house and my son, and I don't have to get a permit, I don't think. But if I wanted to have a big party, for somebody, I would have to get a permit in my house. And Beaufort Code is silent on that. We don't talk about it, but I know that I have to do it if I want to do it. So I don't know why you have to put it in code to let them know that they have to do it. I mean, if you're silent, you're silent, and it's just kind of what it is.
Correct. May I also just make an observation on the city attorney, if I may? And I know you've got a number of attorneys on this board, but it shouldn't be lost on anyone on the board that the city attorney, you're asking to opine on things. The city attorney is also representing the city in a lawsuit relative to B&Bs. And to me, I'm not in that lawsuit, but to me, that presents a conflict for the city attorney. And I would encourage the board to consider getting counsel from a non-conflicted city attorney. Because there is the chance or the perception that the city attorney who is representing the city in a lawsuit relative to this could be tempted to give advice influenced by that lawsuit. I'm not saying it's happening. I'm just saying it could.
Well, I don't have any objection to that at all either, but I don't, that's what the board has the ability to regulate or do. I think that's up to city council. I don't think we can say anything about that.
So I think we got, you know.
You were asking for input from the city attorney, so that's why I bring it up.
Yeah,
I think
whoever that is.
when Kim comes back, do you want to like just kind of vote to see how, because it sounds like there's two factions here. I think we've got what Bill's kind of recommended, and you want to add the special event permit to this?
I mean, I guess if
Or you
it's,
want to do the
if
limited?
it's like a known process, I guess we could just take it out, you know. Okay.
Yeah, I just don't understand. Mr. Scarborough's comment. I'm not sure if I understand it or not. So
I'm just
if
saying,
a residence, like my residence or anybody else's residence, if we want to hold a wedding in our front yard, we don't have to ask special permission to do that.
I don't know, you know, Kurt, I
But-
don't know the city law on that subject.
But a bed and breakfast would have to ask for special permission.
That's not exactly,
You have to ask for it.
I think it was, if it was for my relative, is what I said.
I don't, why
But
don't,
if I would do, if I were
Yeah,
If
yeah.
I was charging for it or did it for an outside organization or something, I think I would have to get a permit,
Okay,
is what I'm
what
saying.
is the city law on special events?
all right.
Yeah, it's for like I think that's the best description. I'm not an expert that goes through downtown operations, but there is a whole process and it's for anything.
Well, we obviously don't know what we're talking about, so it's better that we don't. If we had it in front of us, then we're just guessing.
Want to just remove
I
that and leave it?
Personally, I think we leave it out of there and, you know, if there's another higher ordinance that deals with special events and somehow just. My only point again is I just don't think that.
Yeah.
We've been looking at this whole thing from the standpoint is that the statute is very limiting and I don't think that we should do anything that in one sentence tends to get around what the statute maybe have made illegal.
So. Mr. McFadden's back. So does this work for everybody? Business meetings, receptions, teas, and other events are permitted, provided the events are limited to registered guests only.
Cool.
I thought we were gonna do it permitted by city council.
I don't think we should.
Well,
That's opening the door to just
Okay,
prohibit it.
okay, that's fine. Now the question arises though, would they still apply to city council? I think so.
If they can, they can, but
Okay.
we don't know. I don't
Then
think
this is perfectly fine.
I'm not entirely sure.
Especially if it's the B and B's outside the downtown area, like in my neighborhood. What would happen? I don't think downtown is there.
wonder how
I don't
many-
know.
I mean, I wonder how many
You should
people have
review
weddings
it.
and stuff at their houses with a good number of guests and they never even look at the code or.
Right, I know, yeah.
Don't think about permitting, nothing. Yeah,
So,
and as long as the neighbors don't complain,
yeah.
that's
We're having a
fine.
block party at one of the houses this Saturday. I'm not the one
Let me just say, right, we got one call. The other people that live on my block are doing this. Not you.
I might show up.
So we done?
All right.
Have we put a date in this?
I think we killed it a couple of times.
Listen, I'm not done. Unfortunately, I need to leave, so,
And remember, Leon.
yes.
I'm gonna go, thank you all very much for today. I appreciate being allowed to speak and a good discussion. Thank you very much.
Sure.
So you can.
I think it's important for you to clarify your statements.
What's next?
I think maybe not. Yes.
Well, we're gonna, we were just hitting on that one. But are we're gonna go through all?
Yeah, we're gonna go through all of these and then I guess we can go through anything else. Drive-through restriction and RMX. So I think this is something we really didn't talk about and it was brought up by Mr. Trask, planning commission meeting. Probably hasn't been followed through on, I think, in the past. Well, not recent past, but previous administration is, there's a section of the code where 3.7.2C. Mr. is gonna go to it. There's this drive-through location that states that drive-through lanes shall not circulate around any primary street frontage. So, I think there was some concern that if you're gonna do an RMX, then it almost eliminates all drive-throughs from the city. And I think the concern is, you know, with Buford Station and a lot of the other drive-throughs have been permitted over the years, not recently. This hasn't been followed, and so. Do we want to allow an only RMX, allow basically a revision here that not only would. That specific standard go with that, essentially that you could still do a drive-through.
You're basically saying you can allow the drive-through in the front of the building in the RMX as long as the stacking lanes.
This is not, what you've got here is not.
Now show them the new code, the new suggestion.
Yeah, in the memo, it's a suggestion, it says drive-through maybe accessed or exited across the front of the building, vehicle stacking must remain on the side of the building, and that's only for RMX. So what we're getting
I'm
at
fine
here
with that.
is, the Chick-fil-A or the Buford Station are excellent examples. I think the concern, this is again only in RMX, is that, we're trying to get away from vehicles like visible from the street, from the main street. And so where they,
in RMX?
no, but it was pre-code.
Yes, forget that.
So we don't want to see those cars like stacked up, but it's okay once when you get your, McBurger or whatever, you can then drive out, through a drive-through lane. Does this make some sense? And that it's hard to organize a plan, a drive-through without allowing that. So
The complicated nature of that to me is, if I take a look at Chick-fil-A,
so it's there, it's all.
you've got some separation between the thoroughfare and the drive-throughs, I believe. There's a little bit of separation between those two. And
Well, first of all, Chick-fil-A is T5 UC.
for whatever reason,
Right.
when you're doing your drive-through lanes, it always seems like it's going opposite the lane of traffic of the thoroughfare that you're in, which seems complicated to me. But if there's some separation there, I don't necessarily have a problem with it. But if you're right up against the thoroughfare or the sidewalk adjacent to the thoroughfare, does that create a complication in just traffic and traffic patterns and safety?
Well, I think that's what we're intending to do. We're trying to say, yes, we can make it easier for you to go drive-through if you have RMX. But your stacking needs to be, where you're actually doing your ordering, where all the vehicles are backing up to order. Before you hit the window, it's all behind or the side of the building. It's not in the front.
I don't know you could ever do a Chick-fil-A without having it go all around the building. I mean, they just have so much business. I don't know how you do it.
I'm sure they could do it. It just wouldn't be in the front. The
But
stacking wouldn't be in the front.
I don't get that.
yeah, I don't disagree with that, but
I don't know how you do it.
is it, should we be writing something into the code that makes it so that it's just a lane that drives through, but you're not doing pickup or anything like that on the front of the building?
To me, it just.
We've already got that.
To me, it just seems that if you screen whatever is visible from, which is parallel to the street, if that was screened, that seems to solve the whole problem.
Yeah.
And instead of trying to design the way that they circulate, they call the Trask something, you might deal with it.
Well, it's already in the code right now, so it's just trying to say, yes, you can do it.
I know it, but we also talked about it at length, I think, when Paul had that example of that bank. Can we hear from him?
Yeah, okay. Yeah,
Well, I've got
I would agree if we can have some kind of screening for it, but especially you got headlights coming at you from the other direction.
That's a problem. So since the issue of I'm going to talk about a couple of different issues. Since the issue of the Chick-fil-A came up, the city council seems to have it in their brains that was all approved under the former UDO code. That is false. And if you like, I can bring you the documents. The permit was issued under T5 UC. Everything that you see at Chick-fil-A was issued and approved by the city of Beaufort as under T5 UC zone. Okay, that is a fact. Number two, not only did the city approve it, the city facilitated the entire thing by selling the adjoining property to what was the original Chick-fil-A site for the princely sum, I forget, it was either $30,000 or $35,000. Without that sale from the city to the Chick-fil-A property owners, you could have never built any of that. So these are facts. So Chick-fil-A aside, everyone loves Chick-fil-A. All you gotta do is ride out there to see how much people love it. They don't care. They do not care. And I believe that 99% of the citizens in this community do not care that that double drive-through lane circulates that building. And I believe that's also a fact. Now, onward, RMX, as a matter of right, should be able to circulate the building. You've got these two in front of the Lowe's. You've got a Kentucky Fried Chicken and a Taco Bell, both of which stack. You've got the new Beaufort Station that was approved, and you've got I would have never believed that Panda Express was more popular than Chicken Salad Chick, but I observed it with my own eyes when I went out there and took photos the other day, and I'm not trying to, but they are absolutely lined up. I think I had one photo with 6 or 8 cars lined up against, on the street side. Now, RMX, as a matter of right, RMX is an auto-oriented district. And by right, you should have a drive-through that functions. All we've got to do is go and look at the McDonald's drive-through out here in Burton, which was approved under T5UC, to see a drive-through that does not function particularly well. Now, that said,
Where is it? You said
I'm sorry, the one out here, the McDonald's
on Boundary?
on Boundary.
Okay, you said.
I call it Burton because I've lived in Beaufort.
I'm sorry, I missed the context.
All right, now, so I've said what I said about RMX. And in T5UC, I've argued, and you're correct, I got an approval for in defense of my own projects here, I'm gonna speak just a little bit. I got an approval for the Chipotle. The city then tried to undermine a permit that they issued on that Chipotle, and I'm just gonna step over here and show you this. They all stack back here in the back. You got a window right here on the side, and then they're gone. Yes, they go around, but you don't see them stacked up right here. They do not stack. They just simply go away. Okay, so then we went and tried to get approval for the South Atlantic Bank right over on the other side there, and were denied, and wound up going to ZBOA, and they've got a drive-through that comes around and goes underneath this canopy right here. And I don't believe I've ever seen cars stacked up on that. Now,
Can I ask you something, Paul?
yes, sir.
On Robert's Malls there, where the cars drive past, right, yeah. Is there landscaping along there?
Yes, sir. There is a fence and there's podocarpus planted right now.
So you really don't see the cars.
No, you don't. And
Yeah, there you are. So that's what I'm.
yeah. So when this matures and gets up tall,
You can see it.
you don't even see them. So the point is, in order, whether or not you want to try to put a square peg in a round hole by calling this district an urban district, it is not. It does not have urban infrastructure. It does not have a quiet street. It has the central boulevard of this community going through it. And so in an attempt to try to make it urban, I don't have a problem pulling the buildings up to the front, but there's got to be some situation where you can have a reasonable drive-through, as these two are. These are reasonable, functional drive-throughs. They can be screened, and there needs to be a provision even in T5UC for that. And a free going around. I'm not saying don't screen it in RMX. I'm not suggesting that. They can be screened with some shrubbery. That would be much nicer for everybody. But RMX needs to be able to circulate by right in order to have a functional drive-through. So that's the gist of my comments.
I go along with Bill. I'd like to see screening added to this. I don't mind seeing them circulate that way, but I think there ought to be some screening there so
Yeah, I just think if we
that you're protecting the.
it gets so hard to plan things sometimes, you know, and if we just recognize the fact that, you know, some businesses are gonna have a lot of stacking, some are gonna have almost none. And some, just depending on the lots and stuff, if you just allow them to have their drive-throughs and circulate however they have to make it function properly, but just require this, you know, a screen at time of planting that's sufficient to obscure the view of traffic.
I think as long as it has that,
Huh?
as long as it has like that. You kind of see it, that connection to that sidewalk, you know, you still have that safe crosswalk
Yeah,
through it.
yeah, right, you still have
To
to.
the front door, commission
Right.
may determine that opaque fencing vegetation may be preventative to.
Well, to that point,
The critical point in this is, we've already covered that, and the fact that their stacking has to be approved. So it's the stacking on that really has to be approved. The drive-through is consequential to that.
correct. And to your point, very much, you're correct, the safety. But even if you look at the rules right now, which want you to circulate to the rear of the building, so they want you to be stacking in the rear and circulate and pick up at the rear. You know, if you park in the back and the building's right up on the street, like the Wendy's, the new Wendy's out here, you still have to cross across. You know, you have to, so you're right, Benji, that's have to be provided for. Let's look at that one. Yeah, see this Wendy's, so they stack here, but the customers are all here, and so they've still got to cross over in order to get in the restaurant.
So are we good with this? And then one, like an additional sentence on the screening, is that?
Yeah, yeah.
We have kind of the planning commission may determine, we already talked about that the opaque screening or vegetation may. Build this requirement. You want to add that to the RMX too?
Yes, I would.
Yes, that's fine. All right.
I don't have a problem in T5UC if you say that the drive-through shouldn't circulate the building, but for providing screening so that it can't be seen.
And that's what it says. It should not be visible where the lot configuration makes it impossible to screen the drive-through lane. Planning commission, that's what we added, may determine.
Okay.
That's supposed to may
Fine,
work for that.
fine. Good. Sorry.
So you know too much.
Oh.
So now we're gonna allow it in T5UC, allow a drive-through to come out the front of the building.
I think it should.
So. Did you end up ordering at Panda Express?
No, sir, I'm not allowed to eat at Panda Express. I would have been, that would have been a very serious offense.
Even chicken salad chip?
No, sir.
They have to have an option.
Public he can. Okay. Next item.
Pipe downtown, also came up.
So let me ask you about that. So, couple of instances. Now, like we consider it downtown where those condo buildings are, those new townhomes, next to the Anchorage Inn.
Well, this was, if I could just state it first, there was a question about this, and I was limiting to just T5DC, which we can pull up the map. which is really just like two streets.
Well, I don't know exactly where the lines
So
are.
let's pull up at the zoning map. Is right now that allows 4 stories. But realistically, the HDRB there is no 4-story building. Actually allows up to 5.
The question, the townhome,
The townhomes are zoned T4N.
so where is the line
So
there?
the light blue here on the screen is T5DC. Those are the townhomes, so that's T4N, darker blue. Yeah, they're not, it's not the best colors they use to delineate, is it? And so the DC right now allows a 4-story, street fronting part, the 5-story steps back, but the question came up, we really haven't allowed any more than 3 stories in the whole city. And the HDRB seems to be pretty reluctant to ever approve.
You said we don't allow more than 3-story anywhere in the city?
What, oh, let me just say, so T5, so the purpose of this is there was a question. Why the code in T5DC allows a 4- and 5-story building in the downtown commercial district? There you go, 4 stories max, 3 and 4 stories max.
Question.
And so your question is,
I'm trying to understand. So the first question I ask is the townhome buildings that were built next to the Anchorage Inn, that's not the district you're talking about.
it is not, it's in T4N.
Okay.
They're
Then
3 stories.
that real modern style building right in the middle of the downtown block. That seems to be more than 3 stories.
I think it's only 3 stories.
What's
I'm
that
pretty
thing on-
sure, I didn't mean that only 3 stories allowed, I meant practically, I believe there's only 3 stories downtown. I'm not aware of any.
What's on the top of that building? I thought there's.
It's like a penthouse, it's residential.
Yeah, isn't that a 4-story?
It might be the only 4-story, but I thought it was just 3 stories. Let's look it up.
No, it's 4 stories.
Might be 3.5.
It might, yeah, it might be 3. I thought it was 3 stories, so if I misspoke, it's my.
That one seems to me.
It's under door.
It's that, it's right next.
If there's a penthouse on it, that makes it 4 stories.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that weird concrete building.
Yeah.
So it would be the only building that would be more than 3 stories. And, since I've been here, they've had a few 4 stories proposed for downtown and none of them they've had stiff opposition from.
There's that
Council.
town, 1, 2, 3, and that top thing is a 4.
Right,
Is that like a rooftop?
It's a little.
It's a house.
penthouse.
Penthouse.
May I chime in? By
Go
chance?
ahead.
Yeah, I believe that we should have no more than maximum 3 stories in downtown Beaufort. I am a developer, as you may know. The building that you're talking about, I don't know where you're going, Bill, but if the logic is that we have one, and I think you are right, that is 4 stories. So therefore we can't preclude 4 stories, I don't believe holds together. I would argue that building right there, and there's no offense to that building, would not be approved right now by the HDRB. There was a building approved, which is 4 stories, which you guys are probably very well aware of in downtown. I don't believe that 4 stories is appropriate in downtown. I don't believe our current HDRB will approve 4 stories. I don't think they should approve 4 stories. And you can see that building actually, although it's 3 stories, not including the top, it's the same height as the 2-story building next to it. So actually the mass and scale is more of about a 3-story building. And this gets to mass and scale. And my belief is 4 stories is not appropriate in downtown given the mass and scale. I also want to talk to the Anchorage condominiums building, those were approved at a time when all of these, I'm talking my perspective now, all of these buildings which were approved, which are outsized, were approved by an HDRB, which I believe exceeded. They didn't do as well a job as they could have. But that's a long-winded way of saying that I believe those buildings would also not be approved in this current environment and should not have been approved. And so I do know that when my building downtown for the there was a lot of pushback, if you remember, or you may remember, on the parking lot behind 720, 724, 722, 724, there was a lot of pushback on even to it being 3 stories, and that was only for a portion of the building. And so I implore you guys to put a maximum 3-story limit on buildings downtown. Anything taller is too tall and inappropriate, and I believe opens up our downtown to buildings which are oversized.
So
Thank you.
just to clarify, I'm not arguing for 4 stories. I'm just when somebody states that there aren't any 4 stories, I just want to point out there appear to be 4 stories.
Fair enough. It sounds like it looks like there's one there, and there was one that has been approved but yet to be built.
Yeah, and so as respects the one that was approved and yet to be built, and I understand it's in litigation.
It's not in litigation.
Oh, maybe it isn't, then I don't know why it isn't being built, but so what would probably happen if we change the 3-story and the period for vesting ran, then when it came through for a new approval, obviously it couldn't go to 4 stories. So
Well, I guess that's something to think about, but
Yeah.
what I would be concerned about, that you guys would take decisions about what's good for the historic district, because you're concerned about
No, and I'm not.
that.
The other thing,
I think we need to make decisions about what is good for our historic district and not be concerned about the consequences of or being fearful of blowback from an approved project.
well, first of all, if they still have their vested rights, and there's anything if we take it down to 2-story, it's not going to affect it.
Correct.
So just so I can be further clear on the thing, I do think that I'm fine with 3 stories, but I do think also that if the historic district, if the regulation allows 4 stories and the historic review board is only approving 3 stories, I don't know that it's acting legally. I mean, I think that if somebody's entitled to 4 stories, they're entitled to 4 stories. So if we want to eliminate the 4 stories, then we change our code to eliminate 4 stories. But there's discretionary authority that we have in the code. But that isn't an authority to completely eliminate all of your entitlements that the code provides for. So if we have a problem with 4 stories, I think the better way to deal with it is to change the code to say 4-story max than to just try to muscle the historic review board not to ever approve.
No. I think you misspoke. You said 4 stories max. You mean 3 stories max.
I'm just saying, if we want to have a 3-story max, then we should say 3-story max rather than
Absolutely.
just
Absolutely.
muscle the HRB to never allow somebody to go to the 4 stories that are otherwise allowed.
All right.
No, I totally agree with you. It's a risk to allow for 4 stories max because you have these discretionary boards, and they have proven that they will do that if allowed. So I think you have to put the hard line in the sand. Yes, I agree.
I'm leaving it for the people that, have strong opinions on the subject. We've been here longer, like you and Mike and Levy, so if you guys like the 3-story, why don't they?
All right. The T4HN already is limited to 3-story max. Okay?
The HN, okay.
And T4HN is limited to 3-story max.
Didn't have the
The
5,
T4N allows you to go to 4 stories,
right.
but there's a clarification there that it says 3.5-story max in fronting on a historic district. Now, I disagree with that because what I wound up with across the street from me are 4-story buildings because of the interpretation of habitable. And so I have a problem with the definition of a story and habitable versus allowing 3.5-story buildings because they made it into a 4-story building. So I'd like to change that along with Mr. Trask. I would like to see that lowered at a minimum to 3 stories fronting historic district, because a historic district only allows for 3 stories.
Right.
Story max in other areas, I think, I don't know.
What about
That should be 3 stories too. But but the zoning code I was talking about was T5DC.
So you're saying that the T5DC, the T4HN, and T4N when facing a historic district, all should be a maximum of 3.
Now, T5DC is 3-story max.
No, it's not.
T5UC is 5 stories.
No, that's not true, Michael. Sorry, I'm not trying to.
Up on the screen right here. It says
T4, T5DC is 4 story, is 4 stories.
No, well, it's 3 stories at the property line, and then 15 feet behind the property line, you're permitted 4 stories.
Correct.
Right,
Okay.
yes.
Well, what do we feel about that?
No.
What do you feel, Michael?
It's our downtown, it's the heart, it's the soul, it's the retail, it's restaurants, it's people activity.
So before.
The HRV says.
The HRV
Paul,
has.
what do you want to say?
I'll stay.
I think, I don't have the Milner in front of me, but I don't believe the Milner documents support 4-story building in downtown Beaufort.
No, they don't.
We've got a sort of quaint, landmark historic district, and we've got some things that are already oversized, like our downtown marina. And, I think that limiting to 3 stories is the best solution. I wish that someone from HBF was here to speak to this and before maybe I'd put it in at 3 stories.
Well, I've talked to HBF a lot about this because I've wanted to change this for years now.
Let's say let's change, I'll go with 3.
I don't think anyone's gonna argue from HBF about limiting it to 3 stories.
Fine with me, fine with me. Fine with me. In all 3 of the circumstances, and
The counterpoint would be it's a form-based code on density in your downtown. We have a unique downtown.
Oh, we got it.
That's the counterpoint to it. It's a very complicated thing. That's what I learned my first year here. I think I stated.
well, we're not density and intensity, so we're not eliminating any density or intensity. We're still saying you can have 100% floor area rate, I mean, whatever. I don't know what the floor area ratio, we don't even have that, but I mean, obviously you have 3-story buildings from property line to property line, so it's pretty dense. We're just taking a story off going forward, right?
I mean, if you're building an apartment or townhouses or a hotel, that's density.
So I think, but the prevailing view seems to be, most of us or almost all, is these 3 circumstances we're dealing with, that is not just the T5DC, but also the T4HN and T4N when facing a historic. Yeah, we
So
would want to
it's
change.
3.5 stories right now.
Yeah.
See right
Well,
there.
Mr. Kraft, that's brings up an important point, because as you're looking at the historic downtown area and including the residential into that, we have a lot of information in the code about massing. And so massing and building height have a lot to do with what your perception of the downtown area is. If we want to relieve anything from that, stepping to the setback off of the front where you are allowed 3 stories and you allow maybe 4 stories if you go a certain distance back, that's all because you want to perceive the massing through the historical visual as opposed to seeing a 4-story building. And I think that if we wanted to increase the mass without the perceived increase in mass, you could maybe let that step back farther than 15 feet so that you didn't have any chance of seeing that. That would be the only, that would be my comment on allowing more than 3-story if the board wanted to allow any more than a 3-story.
Fair enough. However, Beaufort does have a skyline. And while you may not perceive the 4th story because of the step back at the property line, Beaufort does have a skyline. And though that 4th story will impact that skyline. And mass and scale is driven, it is, and I will continue to scream this from the heights, is width times height times depth. That's mass. It's volume. And so height is a driver of volume and therefore mass.
Definitely, but my point was, when you're perceiving mass as you're looking down the main street, you're perceiving the historical mass of the buildings being 3-story pretty much all the way down. And the increase in height on the backside where you're not seeing that. I know you're saying skyline, but if you're perceiving it walking or driving, you're seeing basically 3-story buildings.
Yeah, I agree with that. I'm not refuting that. I'm just putting an addition to that, which is that you do have a skyline aspect here. And that's important to some people, as have been articulated.
Say 3 stories or 4 stories, are we enforcing how tall 3-story or the 4-story?
Yeah, he just brought it's habitable space. Very good. So it's that. It's on the, yeah, right there. The building height is measured as the number of stories in a building.
So that's finished floor to ceiling, but then that's not accounting for the structure in the parapet.
Right. Unoccupied attics, 7 feet to the ridge beam. So yeah, we'll look at the architects here if you guys think that.
Well, I definitely would like to change
Then B is
under T4N and T5 UC that 3.5
DC.
UC.
UC.
Oh, I'm sorry, my code must be.
No, that's
You're right,
UC.
you're right.
You're right, Mike. It's UC, it's DC, and it's T4.
The three-story max fronting historic districts needs to be 3, not 3.5 stories. And I'd like to address the habitable part later on also. And I think that I'd like to see the 3 stories be, or 4-story be 3-story with a setback of more than 15 feet
Or just, do
to be able to go to 4 stories.
you want to remove that or do you want to just, how far back would it go?
What?
The argument is that you're gonna be able to see it as you.
Why that, Mike? Why won't you go with 3 stories, Matt?
Just to allow a developer to get as much mass as he can out of the footprint. That's the only thing I'm thinking of, trying to do better for somebody that wants to develop a piece of property.
Or downtown.
I'm not in favor of that.
As a developer, tell me why.
As a developer, tell you why?
Why?
Because it is not consistent with our historic downtown district, which is the reason that people come to our district. And I think you are allowing, as is proven, because there's no building except arguably maybe one, which is a modern building that is more than 3 stories. And I still don't understand why people keep sticking to, we want to have 4 stories, and figure out how we can put 4 stories there.
The only thing that extra little thing on top setback would be as a penthouse or a beer, or a rooftop bar or something like,
Yeah.
and except that we really want those. We really want, if somebody was looking to put a rooftop bar or something, we really want those on the street level, don't we? I mean, that's what activates it, the street. Why would we want somebody having that up there anyway?
Well, I'm just thinking about,
On the street, the sidewalks are so narrow, that's,
Yeah,
I don't know.
I don't know where city council's gonna go. That's all I'm thinking about.
well, it would be a nice view, yeah. I don't
have a problem making it 3 stories. I just think it'll get changed.
I don't know.
Okay.
But
Well, let's let them change it. I think it'll be a good discussion.
I'll,
Why don't we just see where the group wants to go? Anybody have strong feelings?
I'd go with, if Mike wants to move, keep the 4 stories, but say it has to be set back further than 15, I'd go for that.
How much more than 15?
I don't know, I don't have a good,
Is greater than 15.
I mean, I think it's fine the way it is, but I.
But limit the height, like the actual, like mass height, is that what we're saying?
Yeah, that extra thing should still have an extra.
Setback.
Well, so you actually get the full 4th story in that setback area or a more limited height? Yeah.
yeah, you could.
Yeah.
If you want to see it on the street, almost have a perspective, but it seems like it might be more like 20-25 feet setback.
I think we're looking at architects, but you want to still get rid of so you're saying 25 feet, and what do you think the 3.5 stories still need to come out?
I think
4.5
comes out.
Yeah.
3.5 has to come out. It needs to go 3. I mean, I've been fighting that now for a few years.
On that.
Yes.
Yeah.
So now the question is the 4 stories, do you want to just go to 3 stories in T5DC?
I've been fighting the 4-story for 5 years, Mike. Does that count?
I mean, we get the HRBs input on that?
Oh,
HRB is gonna say
they'll
3.
say 3 stories.
They're gonna say 3.
I don't think we need that, we don't. And not to discount, we're gonna say, just we
I mean,
don't.
I'll just need to make a decision, it
So
sounds like there's
they-
one for 25 foot, but where are the rest of you at? So we just wanna poll each other, do you wanna go?
Yeah.
Go to 3 stories?
What do you want?
25 feet.
What do you say?
25 foot.
Say
That's,
3 with a 25 for 4. But
I can live with that.
But that, I'll rely on you architects,
all right, we'll go with the
urban planners.
3 with a 25-foot setback. From
May I ask one clarification question, please? So would these rules apply to the overlays? It would not apply to the Boundary Street overlay, nor necessarily to the Bladen overlay, would they? Where you've got on Bladen, you've got the Chamber of Commerce building, which I think is a 4-story structure. And then you, obviously out here on Boundary Street, you've got hotels and all that exceed that by quite a bit. So there wouldn't be a limitation there under what we're suggesting, would there?
There's no T5 DC along Bladen.
Or
Yeah.
T4HN.
Okay, so it doesn't apply to those other districts. I'm sorry, that's what I needed to ask.
You can see it there, it's all.
I said, well, no.
There'll
So
be some controversial.
exactly.
T4HN or T4N?
The blue is T4N, the orange is T4H.
Are we changing T4N to 3 stories? Right now it's 4 stories.
I think,
It says in the historic district.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay, never mind.
This is
Got it.
The only caveat to that might be the blatant overlay, which was intended to be a little different. And you've already got a great big, pretty giant structure on there, so I don't know. Most of it's developed out, I mean. So I don't know.
They wanted to have story every week.
All right, well, that's,
And that would take me to 261A, which is the building height measurement. Building height is measured as the number of stories in a building. And then it says a story is a habitable level of building no more than 15 feet in height. Pardon?
Get rid of habitable.
Remove habitable.
I would like to remove habitable.
that's fine.
I'm cool with that. Do we think 15 feet in height is too much, perhaps? You do 10-foot ceilings,
Well, if you're in a downtown area, might want to have, higher structure.
So what, just for clarification, what is the difference between removing habitable and not removing, or keeping it?
Yeah, I don't know.
Well,
A
you could have a
garage,
fake, you could have a non-habitable.
You could have a ground floor that was not habitable and then stack 3 stories on top of that ground floor.
And then later on, come back and make it happen. Basically, that's what you're doing.
that's
That's
what
what
single
people-
family houses come in,
Huh?
that want, like
Yeah.
a garage, like a full-size garage, and
I
then
got
3 full-size
Yeah.
stories. That's pretty common.
That's, yeah. I wonder those park under townhomes or whatever that are sort of what
That's the
was
problem
built, yeah,
I
on
have.
Bay Street. I mean, there's a different name for those architecturally, but anyway, I mean, in a downtown area, those are done, I would say, pretty nicely. In some ways, not really, what I would say, encouraged in a downtown area because there's really no activity at the street level, because it's just a garage. I mean, it's all prettied up. So you might not be able to see the headlights or, hear the motor, but there's nothing there. There's no there. The people are up top, and it's sort of, I don't know. So that, if they weren't done that nicely, they could have been a real sort of unpleasant pedestrian experience, because you're walking by garages. You could have a whole row, think of the whole row of them, a whole block face. You'd be walking by nothing but garages. And sometimes they'll have windows in them, but they're opaque, so you can't look in, you can't see in there that it's really a garage with storage. So it's not really, I think, a building type or a building form that should probably be allowed in pedestrian areas.
No,
So that could
I
solve the
just know
problem
that-
that you've got there, but, so I don't know,
yeah,
solving it by saying including those areas is habitable, if that's solving the problem might be that's not a good building form to have in a downtown urban area, to have those park under townhomes.
And I think actually, because the pictures that I'm looking at, I'm entirely sure. I think that it is, I think some of that people actually look at it, sometimes it's a garage and sometimes it's half garage and half becomes habitable.
oh, it always becomes habitable.
As Mike said.
We have
Yeah.
2 townhomes that are getting ready to get started to be constructed, but they're only 3 stories.
That's what they say.
Well, they are only 3 stories.
Okay.
Okay, so then the only other place I have is 263, 2-story height requirements.
Or I have something
Okay.
over there while we're on 2.6.1. How are
maybe propose adding some kind of verbiage. You know how where we sometimes have structures like a car wash. Where it looks like 2 stories, so they're basically like making a tower, you know. Over, and it's like, it's a 1-story.
Higher administration.
So, some kind of verbiage that would say that that's not. Right, yeah, there's no like, I kind of made something up here and maybe this sounds
Where we
good,
gonna go?
maybe there's
Are you adding a letter?
yeah, probably adding a letter,
Okay,
so, and I generated, so there's probably a better way to verbiage this. Building heights and roof lines must be proportional to the functional interior space of the structure. Expansion of vertical building facades, empty structural shells or oversized parapets is prohibited.
I think that's good. If you give it to me. So basically the call wash out of the exam.
Exactly.
I remember Libby called like the second or so. It's like, what?
Well, isn't there one on Robert's Falls Parkway? I don't know if it's a. But
It's got a tower.
it's got a tower and really it's just a billboard for the business.
Right, exactly, just to get their sign as high as.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And if that works for everybody else.
yeah.
That works for me. Works for me on your computer. I think that's a good answer. We can type it in.
There are actually provisions in 262 for specific zones, like specific to T5 zones. There is like under number, what is it, 4 or 3 actually, the ground floor height of single-story commercial buildings shall be a minimum of 14 feet from the finished floor to ceiling. Maybe you want to include a max language in there.
Yeah, that ceiling keeps coming up, because the ceiling might be 14 feet, but then the structure might be 30 feet.
Most commercial tenants on a ground floor are gonna want 14 feet, by the way, clear. I mean, I could see you changing to a minimum 12. But that's just a minimum. I mean, if that's the direction that you feel like you kind of want to go. But I don't see anything wrong with 14 as is for a single story ceiling height.
Right. I mean, inside a grocery store, it's probably 40.
Oh, much higher.
Yeah, but even higher, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, maximum.
Building must be proportional to functional interior space expansion of oversight. Yeah.
then I have a question. Not sure exactly what this is on 263A. 2-story mass says this can be an open double height structure with a minimum building height of 24 feet. The second floor does not need to be built out or habitable.
Is that the existing? 'Cause I know we-
Yeah, that's the existing.
Because I know we allow.
I don't know if that's a problem or not. I
Reinforce
really
your
don't.
buildings.
Okay, yes. Where is that?
263A.
Since I think we changed it, it's reinforced. Yeah, it's all been kind of rewritten. I think we,
2-story mass.
That might be related to,
okay.
like, in T5, you've seen those intersections where you can do store previously.
Yeah.
It might be related.
Okay,
that's right.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what it
Because it
is.
says second floor doesn't need to be built out as habitable, it sounds like it'd be a mezzanine
You
or.
open, okay, I see where
Yeah,
you're
so I
going.
think that's where that came from.
The second
So I don't know
floor
if
does
it's a
not
problem
need to
or
be,
not.
yeah, that's a problem. We need to go
Because
through
we've
that.
redone that.
We did redo, but that needs to go away. I think we talked about that to Dash, but. You know, we don't need to be, that's why we're allowing the 1-story. We don't false.
My question, if I may, on the section that we're really now talking about, where there is the single story provided that you meet those conditions. My question was, you know, there are many places in the code where there's an illustration. Would it be helpful to include an illustration? I mean, it doesn't have to be
Yes.
this one, but this is
Yes.
one that Adam Beery prepared and presented to you back in February. This particular one, which I believe took into account the comments that Chris had made. I'm sorry, I didn't bring more copies, I'm sorry.
No, I've got it.
This
No,
one,
yeah,
I see that.
We got that, yeah.
yeah. The only thing that I'd like added to that sketch would be,
just
some landscaping inside of that,
oh, certainly,
not just,
great idea.
things, but
It needs to have an overstory tree.
yes, yeah, something like that in there.
Right,
If we're encouraging that kind of thing, if he could redo that, that'd be great to put that in there.
okay, so I can have that done. Do you want me to do that? Yeah, I'll get that.
I think that'd be great.
Okay. Yep. Otherwise, I think this change is very constructive. I think it really addresses, the issues that we're, trying to create on an urban streetscape that's pedestrian accessible. I like the language. I think it's fine. And it's functional. But let me refer you back, if I may, if you're going to do this, there was also an option to sort of pull the building back from the street just a bit and have a patio in the front. So this illustrates what the corner might look like, but if you had a situation where just a building in line that was going to be dropped back in order to have the patio in the front. And if you did that, you would need to modify, you need to go back to 2.4.1 B1 and then change the setback, which is currently 15 feet max. I would recommend that you change that to a 20 or a 25 foot maximum setback in order to allow the building to be placed back and still have room for the patio up front. That needs to be a change.
Sections.
That would be
I like that idea also.
the chart on 2.4.1, chart B, primary building placement. In T5, you see the front back setback can go from 0 presently to 15 feet. My recommendation would be that it go from 0 to 25 feet.
I like that idea. I don't know about anybody else from the board.
That's fine with me.
May I make one more point on that same page? That would be in chart,
No, you've had max.
in chart A. We've got a proposed change in T5UC to from a 60% build out to a 75% lot frontage build out. I really don't understand that. And I know we discussed it one time previously where a caveat that might be to plant an overstory tree or something else, to allow a breezeway between buildings.
Yeah.
And that it makes it difficult. And again, I'll just use my family's property to illustrate it. If you basically block out the front, then you get a lot of heartburn from tenants in the back. And I think you accomplish the same goal with the 60% frontage build out. Or you can say 75, but give it a mitigation factor. I know there's a 10% rule, but give it a mitigation factor if you plant an overstory tree or something to create a breezeway. And I don't understand why we went from 60 to 75, what the logic was actually.
I don't have a problem with that either, because I think we talked about doing
I just
this.
wanted to get rid of 75.
That would be my recommendation.
Just get rid of 70.
Go back to the 60% minimum.
Yeah.
Trying to make it more urban. So we were trying.
Well, I know, but it is even at 60% built up on the street, it's pretty daggone urban.
If you walk downtown in a major city, it's 100%.
That's the minimum, I could be,
Yeah, it's true.
My street's becoming a New York. tunnel. So do you want to move on, Kurt?
Do you mind if I go to the bathroom for, but I go into apartments?
Moving on to apartments.
We'll let Kurt take it.
But one of the other two gentlemen here is going to handle it while I'm gone.
Okay.
So totally too, I mentioned this before, and it's come up, Mr. Trans mentioned it, about the blazing overlay. Do we still need it, and is it working the way that we want it to?
Well, it plainly didn't work when it came to that building they call, that was permitted as an auxiliary building, right?
And it's,
Because it wasn't reviewed by anybody.
Right.
It just permitted it. And I think, Paul, you said you don't care.
I don't, because my property is carved out. It's under the jurisdiction of the HRB anyway, so.
I mean, at this point in time, it's been a very successful quarter, right? And with a little bit that's remaining. There we are, right
He
there.
did make a mistake on that one house. There's no doubt about it. I mean, that was an error.
I think we had two mistakes, but anyway, it just seems that
Yeah,
it's done, maybe what it's fulfilled its intended purpose, and it might just be easier and more appropriate to put it back under the HRB.
yeah.
It isn't the historic district, so.
Well, I don't have a problem with that, actually, because I mean, the street for all practical purposes is built out. It really is.
Yeah, well, you have some houses that you want to build on there, right? But-
Well, yeah, so, but we're, as I say, I mean, it doesn't matter because our property, this property right here is subject to the HRB regardless because it was carved out of the overlay.
And then right across the street where you were gonna have three
Well,
others,
they're already approved to build the townhouses there.
then on the other side of the street,
Well, this side, we're conceptually approved. I mean, I think, you know, we just bring in a house plan, we've got I've got a subdivision that's stamped. I can go record it for 3 lots.
then that HRB approval there too.
No, that's staff approval. So this would be, I mean, I guess I'd like a grandfathering of my concept because I've spent a lot of money with Bill Chambers to develop the.
Is that in the historic district there?
It is, but it is a staff review because of the overlay.
Oh, well, yeah, that's what I mean, but if we got rid of the overlay, it wouldn't be a staff.
Well, it would no longer be a staff review, but regardless, I think, I've got a conceptual approval subject to bringing the final plan in.
So my
As long
question
as-
on that is, there's a question. If we change that and got rid of the overlay there, is he vested with just the conceptual review? I don't think so.
No, you would have to come back for a final.
Sorry.
So what is it?
The courts have already decided with the, one of the lawsuit projects that a conceptual approval is a vested event, so that provides vesting.
Even if the overlay goes away?
I mean, I think you get vesting and conceptual approval.
I mean, these are houses, single family houses. I mean, it's not like, some kind
No,
of.
no, I'm just asking the question.
Yeah.
So.
Well, so for example, when we were dealing with the subdivision regulations, we got rid of that on the sketch plan. We decided because of the case that you're referencing. We're just giving comments. at that
That's
page
right. You
because
made
at
it
that
very
point in time,
clear,
on the
you're
sketch
not
plan-
getting invested and it's in the code, so.
Right,
They know it's in
But
the code, you got no vested right.
but on this thing, you think, as long as Paul is, because he says he doesn't have a problem getting rid of it as long as he isn't giving up the rights that he has. Now, how long is that conceptual plan good for? The end of
It
time?
would be the same as a COA.
I think you get your 1-year extensions, do you not? There's a couple, 3 of those.
2 years,
Yeah.
you can extend it.
But, I don't know what your will is it to get rid of the blade and overlay or not? I mean, pretty-
Well, it was just brought up.
I think you guys all just have to decide what you want to do with it. Yes
Well-
or no? Because it was obviously just like the Boundary Street, there was all these improvements, investments
We're
made.
getting rid of it, make any
There was a
difference.
plan
Yes, so
done
any
with it.
development would go to the HRB. Let's say there's a vacant lot or a house needs, burns down, new house coming in on late or whatever it is, would go to the HRB rather than go to staff.
Yeah.
So
And
it's been-
the example was
it's been a
that,
point of controversy, over the years.
and it really became apparent that there was a loophole there that occurred with that. Because the code was changed some years ago that allowed an ancillary, what do we call it, auxiliary dwelling unit to be built before the main unit. Nobody reviewed that as staff, and it doesn't fit with that again.
And then there's the building that the steps are in the sidewalk. So,
Right,
yeah.
right, yeah.
So we got two problem issues that have come up. I mean, you'd hope the HRB would have caught some of these things.
They would have caught it, they would have caught it.
But if they never went to them,
Or that's what I
Yeah,
mean, so
yeah,
that's
yeah.
maybe a.
Well, not necessarily the ADU, I mean, the ADU can still be built, it's just gotta be subject to.
well, we've changed in our proposal now that you can't have an ADU built before the main structure.
Okay, but we did have a conversation about something like a house apartment on top of a garage, for example.
We said that if you can build a tiny house, as long as it complies, you can build a tiny house. And then later on, if you wanna come and build a bigger house on that and call that the ADU, that tiny house just can't exceed the maximum that's allowed for an ADU. That's what, in that discussion.
Okay, so am I understanding that if you were to build a fairly good sized garage with a house on top and all that your house, and you can live in that.
Right.
Build a,
But because now we have some standards for, low country vernacular and so forth.
Yep.
You'd have to comply with whatever our new
sure,
design standards are.
Yep.
In that case, that loophole that existed there, which we've tried to eliminate, would have been caught if it had gone to the HRB, because they never would have said you could build a house that doesn't match anything in the historical
I
concept.
think our current staff wouldn't either, but it's fair to want to take out the, pardon? I think it's fair to say we would never approve that now, but previous staff, make that mistake. But if you're gonna eliminate it, it's fine. I think you just, is this okay?
I'm just listening to it.
You want to eliminate it, and then, in regard, it's gonna take us months before this actually becomes code, so, we got months to get a vested approval.
okay. I'll
And
come
then
see
you've
you
got
about
a 2 year. And then I think the COAs had like 2 year, 1 year approvals.
that. Yeah, okay, that's fine.
Something else that came up in our task force meeting today that is concerns our rewriting of the codes, and that is when we're looking at the northwest quadrant and commons, and you have a lot of buildings that are smaller buildings, cottages that are on the properties now that are in need of renovation, or whether or not an investor could come in and build an ADU and live in the ADU while renovating the existing structure. And doing that, could they build an ADU that was of more substantial size? Because some of those cottages are very, very small footprints. And so that would take a modification or an overlay in what we're trying to accomplish now as it relates to ADUs in those historic areas.
We have to think about that.
And I think that's something,
Yeah.
that's something we ought to think about, so that we don't get taken advantage of by granting that. But I can see where that could be something that would be valuable to us as an incentive to get some investors to come in.
We can do that as a
Renovate.
We can do that as a code change down the road.
Yeah,
And we'd want to see some architect kind of show us how that would look, you know.
Yeah, I think.
Both from the positive and the negative
Yeah.
side.
Caution, because if you're gonna, bigger building than what's historically contributing, that
I don't.
automatically makes it almost impossible for that to be
I don't know that,
sustained, right? Because then you're building, you're
But can
building a
you-
building that's overshadowing.
can you do something of equal size, equal square footage?
I think that's still getting into that, so.
What did
Yeah, I don't know.
What did Lisa say? What did she get it right?
No, we didn't really get into that.
No, we don't really want to talk about that.
The problem reared its head, it's like, well, this is something we're gonna need to talk about.
Is the issue like to renovate a vacant abandoned property?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, something like that.
I just wonder, given how much it probably would cost to renovate a vacant abandoned property, does that person need to build a necessity dwelling? I don't know, there's so much.
Well, they may get funding for that renovation.
There's a lot
Through other grants or sources, yeah.
Probably another subject.
Yeah, that's.
So the real issue on the floor right now is we want to get rid of the Blaine Street overlay as part of this.
Yeah, do you all want to do that? I think just a yes for now, and then we'll get rid of it or not.
Simplify.
Yes, I hear 2 yeses. I don't know.
I'd go along with it from what I've
Got a
heard.
majority.
I don't want Paul to hurt because he's done a lot of.
Well, I appreciate that. I don't, want to injure my project either, because as I say, I've spent a lot of money
Yeah,
on
right.
architects, but as long as I can grandfather in for, a period of time, then I'm fine with.
Yeah, I mean,
It's an issue of vesting. It's an issue of vesting, and as long as he tells you that, then.
Yeah. I'll come see you.
Okay, Kurt, you wanna go to your next topic?
Okay, I think our final big topic, and then we need to talk about our next steps. I think we've resolved a lot of stuff in the parks, but there's still some things to talk about. Benji has brought up the housing. Again, these are all things that other people have brought up, so, yeah, I think the last minute housing module approach. So we've got the housing module approach, and so I was proposing maybe that's still good for every district, but T5UC, that maybe that doesn't make any sense.
We get rid of it. But go to that section again, let's go there.
So it's on the last page there of that memo.
Yeah, what was that section?
Oh, we'll put it up on the screen.
I've got the memo, I just put it up.
The goal was, again, we're talking a lot about apartments and we're trying to make it look more like, there really weren't blocks of apartments in this area. You've heard of really this part of the whole country.
I think when we added the stuff
Come
that,
back for the 5 o'clock, so
I think when we added this stuff that Libby and Benji and I did under that lot diversity, is that what you call it? In fact, I don't think I'd call it lot diversity. I'd call it like building curtain. You see where there's lot diversity there?
Yeah.
First of all, at that number 8, I wouldn't call it lot diversity. I'd call it, if you're gonna call it something, call it building/unit diversity. Because I think that's really what we're talking about. But I think when we came up with those provisions under little a 1, 2, 3. And then we've got, I want to talk about 9 there. 10, 11, I think that house module approach, that's where you're questioning, Benji, whether that's still necessary.
Right.
I think that we've got enough requirement there with the, because little 1 deals with, if you're gonna have a 4-story, a 3-story and a 2-story, you gotta have a 2-story. Little number 2 talks about that no building next to the other one, any other one can look the same. And then we've got the unit diversity. I don't think that module approach. I just think it almost runs counter to what we otherwise provided.
Yeah, and I think we're gonna, we have this 100-foot max.
And then we
Yeah.
also have the entry frontage requirement.
Yeah.
I think we already have this
Right.
kind of breaking up of the front of the structure, and then we had these
Yeah.
modules, it'll make it look busy unintentionally.
Yeah, I think you just get rid of 11 altogether, right?
All right, we'll get rid of this beautiful regulation.
But, I mean, does it still live like in the, doesn't it still live in the, townhouse or?
No. No. Well, let's check back down. Just go back to the townhouse. I don't think so. We had it.
I guess it's got that articulation.
Yeah, we got our
20,
No, we don't have it there, so yeah, it was just apartment. So we're good with getting rid of it?
Why is this highlighted? Is it? Or-
Well, we're talking about the large apartment complexes. Could we add a provision about requiring electric charging stations in these big apartment
I think
complexes?
it's fine, yeah. You had mentioned that, yeah, we should.
Kind of electric.
For electric vehicles?
Yeah, I know,
Yeah.
but what kind you talking
I guess
about?
it's up to the,
220.
up to the developer, what is the current standard?
Level 1, 2,
Well,
and 3.
that's a problem. If you're trying to do it, you just put in, one, smaller.
It'll take
residential.
24 hours.
Mhm.
I think it's level 3 is like super fast, level 2 is in between. Let me check.
That's exactly right.
Because we did that in Colorado, so I.
No, level two, level one is your
Level
100.
2 is like.
But I don't know if you
20
want to
24 hours.
specify that.
Well, it's not 24 hour. Level two will charge somewhere between your 110 volt outlet and a supercharger, because I have a level 2 in my garage at home. And it will. Nobody really charges an electric vehicle from 0 to 100 on a routine basis.
Yes, so like there's a bunch of level 2s in the city, including at the Marine, a lot of them at the Marine, but some Red House Inn has one.
Mhm.
Apparently True by Hilton has one, and I think that would be a level 2. So
Mhm.
I think we did it one per every 25 units. Where I was in Colorado. But that doesn't mean you have to use that.
Right, just whatever you think is a reasonable
I remember when you
standard,
said
but
that.
I just think we need something.
So if you had a 100-unit apartment complex, that'd be 4.
Mhm.
No, that's.
Yeah, 200 would be 8. That's a lot. There's a cost, that's associated with installing that, obviously, so.
I will say, a lot of the more recent apartment complexes, like 4,000 Margaret, I believe, the Preserve at Hanover Park, they've already been putting them in, like
Mhm.
this kind of baseline.
Okay, well, so adding a provision they have to, it's not gonna be overly burdensome, it sounds like, so. But just make sure that.
Do 1 per 50 lot units, and that wouldn't be overly onerous, but, for a larger apartment complex, it'd be like a 4 lot.
On that same section there, I still think that number 9, you call it mixed use program, ground floor commercial space or designated commercial buildings. At a significant intersection within the site shall be required at a designated. I just don't think it's practical. I just don't see that these mixed commercial things are gonna work in these apartment buildings. And you're just gonna have some vacant space and nobody's gonna occupy. I mean, it's gonna work in a Habersham, which is in a really, that's just a different kind of community. I
We were
just,
just destroying all this beautiful regulation that we drive.
I just-
Well,
I wanna
it
get
says
rid of
it's
it.
not, it just says at the discretion of the design review body. Right, it isn't like they have to.
but it says it shall be required and designated quarters at the discretion. I don't see how shall and discretion.
It doesn't work together.
And that's what I'm getting at. I don't care if you wanna say something that it's a good idea, huh?
Maybe required. It's still pretty discretionary.
But I don't know how we
You just want to get rid of it.
require somebody to do something. If they come in there and say, listen, I'm never gonna be able to rent it, I'm just telling you, it's not gonna happen. I mean, I've just worked on hundreds of apartment communities. I've never seen it working. And I know that it's been an issue before. I just don't wanna force somebody to build space that's not gonna be occupied.
Well, I think the city has had this was prior to the three of us again, some experience with that. You required a commercial outlets as part of Point Grand, and they're sitting empty, and they actually somehow gamed the system where they didn't include them in their TIA.
Yeah, that's,
Because it would have required turn lanes. But anyway,
Point
even though
Grand
they
is-
actually provided the lots. As part of their
Grand is-
apartment complex. Anyway, I was here, but
Yeah,
I think that's kind of an example of.
and I pointed that out before, that's just is a gaping hole there. They would have been better off just bringing those apartment buildings right up to the street than leaving those things there, which are vacant forever. And what we're gonna end up getting is a car wash, a quick lube, and another fast food restaurant in the time. And then you're gonna say, what did we do? You know,
How do we get somebody to maintain
so
those empty lots?
they'll fill them in.
Well, they're maintaining them.
No, but we're,
They're gonna fill them, but that's exactly what I said. And you're gonna look at it, then you're gonna say, what did we gain by doing that?
yeah, but they need to be taken care of now. It looks like crap.
But now this is the preserve at Hanover, right, that we're talking
No, this
about?
is Point Grand. This actually went to the DRB, but. I
This
think
is-
in like
What are the lots
2022
that are-
This, yeah, right there.
Now, the
The
preserve,
preserve.
that's in a development agreement.
Right, so isn't that what we're talking about, the empty lots?
No, we're talking about the Point Grand.
This- corner.
It's slated for commercial.
And it just doesn't seem like it's ever gonna happen. So, because the layout of it is just not conducive to commercial either. There's no parking. It doesn't make.
But
any
that was a
sense.
DRB
The DRB
requirement?
decision before that.
Uh,
I just know when I was like.
Well, they could come back and less time, right? They could come
Well,
back.
even if they did, like, I don't know how they'd have the parking to ever make the commercial work there, you know, like.
Well,
See-
the property
see
by
that?
Lowe's is even worse.
That's what I was.
This is, did you see that they've got all the parking they need for the apartments? So there's no additional parking, so, and there's no, you know, it just makes sense. So,
You know, the idea is
how
You
would
know,
you put a building there?
people,
Small commercial, it would have to be small commercial.
They should have another apartment building there is what they should have.
Be good for a public bus stop.
Anyway, I'd like to get rid of that 9.
All right, I'm
Get rid of it.
hard time complaining,
Just to hold it.
but what's everybody else? think?
yeah, I'm fine with getting rid of it. You didn't lose you lose the 1 mile.
What?
The 1 mile
Yeah,
requirement.
what happened to our 1 mile requirement? Yeah.
I did, I was trying not to send the code again, like, we're trying to make it all right without having multiple versions. But yeah, we were going to put the mile, it should be down there. There it is. Location, we're gonna
Oh, yeah.
mix that with the,
Put that in place of 9.
yeah. So, it's back to. And then there's a question about that, we might as well talk about it. We had 500 employees, but I think that's the.
Oh, I'm sorry, just to be clear, Benji, that was, he had it at 13.
Okay.
It was already there, just, so it doesn't, I don't care whether it's renumbered,
Oh, I
leave
got
it at the
you.
end or put it in that spot there, but it is there.
Yeah, it's right there. Would it be okay to move this to like 100 or 250 employees?
Yes.
We want 100 or do we want 200? Because there's not many, there's only one other employer that has 500. It's just, it seems like we're getting
I go to
200, like 100. That's.
I was serious, Kurt. Is there any way we can do anything about that property that's out there in front of Lowe's? It's a disaster.
Which property is that?
The empty property in front of the apartments.
The one we were just talking about? Oh, you're talking about Hanover Park.
Yeah, I'm talking about.
Preserve, well, their development agreement ends on January first, so they right now don't have anything vested on that commercial section.
I
But
don't care if
it's,
they have anything vested or not, it's a mess, I mean. It needs to have somebody maintaining something there. I wouldn't think that whoever owns those apartments would want that as their front yard.
that guy.
It's ugly.
Well, it's been like a construction site for a while, they got the old.
Still is, just leftover construction.
Where do you have it on there?
It seems like the city has some leverage.
And yeah, I will have to look at that. If they don't have any active permits, yeah, we can definitely have them start.
It'd look better if it was grown over in weeds.
Yeah.
What it is now.
Well, again, this is a development agreement, there was no buffer there.
We're getting toward the end of this, there was, we're in chapter 4 right now, because we just went over the apartment stuff.
I think, well, we just had the 100-foot width, then we'll finish the apartment thing.
What?
The 100-foot width is something that Ben had brought up. And I was proposing maybe to keep it. Because I think it would work in T4, IC and RMX, but maybe eliminating T5 UC, or you want more density and building mass.
Which section are you under, so I can see it?
Right there. So maybe
Look, I can't see that far, sorry.
building with shall not exceed 100 feet along the frontage, but I was proposing maybe we just state that, you know, building with shall any frontage except T5 UC and T5 DC. That was kind of what I was suggesting.
Well, go with this.
Because, yeah.
What are the, are you talking about length and width? I mean, you're just talking any facade? What are these typical large apartment buildings right now?
I mean,
Yeah, so like 100 foot wide is typically 2 units, you know, facing the street. If you do 150, 160, that'll be 3 units.
The width of the building shall not exceed
22.
100 feet along the frontage.
But it's like 4.
Well, Habersham goes by what, like 24 per like kind of unit essentially, like 24, 36.
I think that's more like on townhouse.
Yeah.
So.
Like an 18
multi-foot
width.
family is like 100 wide, and then you have a center quarter or whatever, and then it's like 2 units facing the street and 2 units facing the back, so it's like 4 in that plan. Okay.
Most of these buildings are rectangular buildings, aren't they? And so, first of all, the use of the word width, isn't it better just say are you thinking of the facade length of the building?
Yeah, the frontage
The
really.
frontage shall not exceed, but I'm just trying to, is 100 too little, or is it realistic?
100 is pretty monolithic if it's not really.
Well, we're already breaking them up. So this is just, in addition to all the breakup that we have in lots of different parts of this regulation, I'm saying 100 feet impractical. What we're trying to do is take these great big buildings and improve the appearance of them. And I don't know that adding I'm gonna call it a length limitation on that.
Do you have Google?
It's practical.
Because I think, you know, the student housing, I think that's about 100
Those are about 100 each.
on that.
And I think that was, because what is the current requirement?
106.
And I think it had been 100 when the code was originally,
And they changed it
yeah, and they changed it because of those apartments.
because of the apartment.
Yeah.
And
So
so
there-
we're
that
trying
one-
to change it back.
So that building,
Issue.
okay, so just so I understand, that building,
There were two code words on the table, and lights.
Oh, those are some good looking buildings.
so the totality of that building, forget the fact that there's sort of the middle piece from, how wide is that? That looks like it's like, excuse me. You had a good picture of it.
We're gonna try to measure it.
And again, that's the goal, is to kind of scale them back. 'Cause they kind of look out of place, except for T5UC where maybe makes sense. That was my proposal.
Alright, so you got that scale.
Also, and these are in T5C, but they favor the historic district, so that's sort of a mitigating factor in terms of how wide it's appropriate.
Do it to,
Oh, see, they're 208, so they're 100 each, probably.
They're roughly 100 each.
Yeah, but
Yeah, but
that,
you're,
but that was I think
tell
an
what you're-
issue for the developer that it was.
stick on that picture for a second, stick to that picture, because I don't know what you're talking about. Go back to that picture. So are you saying this is, what is it from there to there?
100.
Yeah.
Because that's one building.
Right.
And that's 100. And you don't want them to be any longer than that. No. Anywhere.
Well, I think what,
I recommend T5UC, which is urban, that they could be 160.
so that would look like,
So-
basically that, adding this other bay, having another.
What
kind
would,
of-
no, you're saying what would look like, that's 160?
That's about 160 to that.
No, so just go once, can you go once to those big ones that we keep referring to at, next to the lows, how wide or long are
They're
those?
definitely bigger than 100.
I'm just curious. Is it there? Is that sort of,
Notes especially. with
is that sort of an, because I can't remember the names of those, but where are they?
points, Hanover Park. Garden Oaks. Which ones would you like? I mean,
Well, when you're on Roberts Falls Parkway, you're looking up those big 4-story buildings there, what's the width of those things?
Robert's, those are probably easier.
Are those them there? Okay,
This is the New Hanover,
is that what they call it?
or the preserve at New
it's
Hanover.
Hanover.
Roughly 160.
Yeah,
And you're saying that in the future, you don't want them to be over 100? Is that what we're saying?
That's what it is now. But I think.
That's our draft code right now says 100.
That's right. With the.
So if our draft code was in existence, this building would have to be a third shorter, right?
and they might have multiple buildings on
Have
those
more buildings.
super blocks,
Open
or
space.
have smaller blocks.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to, if they want to keep it their same density, they're gonna have to break those things up
Yeah.
a lot, right?
Yeah. One other thing, I still wish we would have been out there.
That's fine with that.
When I went out and looked, and this one in particular, I had a hard time figuring out the front or the back of the buildings. I don't know, it was just a very odd feeling to,
Yeah.
you know, yeah, it was sort of strange. I mean,
That's pretty typical.
Yeah, 'cause it looks like,
Cause
enter from the ends.
Well, that's
the humanizing aspect to it, right?
Yeah.
You know, it's.
Well-
We're trying to.
they weren't designed to have a front and a back,
Yeah.
right? Cause this is the front to these here and this is the front to
Yeah,
these here and you
yeah.
park in, you know.
but I think in the future, we should think about that. I mean, like, everybody deserves to have a front door, and
Well, you do,
Know where
if
they
you're
are,
on
like-
this side of the building, you have a front door, if you're on that side of the building, you have a front.
but also you come out of your little.
No, I'm not
hall.
defending,
Yeah,
I'm just
and then
saying
you-
what it was.
You look at a parking lot.
No, that's.
I don't know what,
It's a particularly unattractive development. We're trying to get away.
How long
with
is
it.
that?
Grand The Hanover we were just looking at.
I think
they're
Point
all-
Grant did a much better job,
Yeah,
but they're
Hanover's
still
all,
long.
Hanover's all uniform with building sizes. I think the only difference is the heights, 3 and 4 stories. But Point Grant has a much bigger
Yeah,
variety.
I agree from my little, drive around there, that was a nicer one.
I think this one is just a 12.
What's the length of that one there? Curious. Oh, so we'd be basically saying that'd be the longest building that you can have going forward, is that right?
Well, not in T5UC. You would be saying that in T5UC, you could do this style of development.
Well, the way this reads right now, the building width shall not exceed 100 feet.
Well, no, but I was suggesting in your memo, the page, it's all in the memo on top of the page, the building width along any part except in T5UC and T5DC. The thought being that's supposed to be your urban district, so it should be allowed there.
Yeah, I feel like if they were built on real streets and real blocks, probably the big larger buildings are okay. It's just when they're out like that New Hanover thing. It's that sort of dehumanizing. So.
But that's the thing, a developer's gonna buy this big chunk of property and he's gonna build a private street.
There's still gotta be a street.
Yeah,
And
and
it's
they're gonna
still
build a street in any way they can to get as many units as they can, so. For the T5UC, you're on.
All right, that's fine.
Yeah.
I'll go with you.
It gives them some, it gives you some, it allows the more density and where it should be.
I'll begrudge it.
I wanted clarification, are we limiting to 4 stories? Or are we allowing 5 story
What's that?
for the apartments?
We didn't change, it was all per code, per zoning district.
I guess if you. What was it? Just scroll down to number 11, I think.
Try quick.
Diversity? Elevation.
Yeah, I mean, we started with 4 stories, so I don't know if we should have started at 5 stories.
I think it was just an example, every 2 stories. Yeah. We could add.
When do we want to limit to 4 stories?
Well, that's done per zoning district, so that's what we were just talking about. So the T5UC is the only one that allows 5 stories, so.
So what you're saying is
Well, it's
there's already a limitation in there now.
T4 is 4 stories, T5 is 5 stories. Except for T5DC, which I don't know. 5 acres.
I think once we get into the comprehensive plan, we really need to look at all of that zoning, because it doesn't, to me, it doesn't make a lot of sense. I spent a lot of time in that a few years ago trying to develop Ladies Island plan and looking at the way we have spot zoning everywhere is not good. Next week.
If you Yeah, other people, I'm okay with it. It's just, you wanna limit T5 UC to 4-story, fine.
Thinking just like limiting apartments to 4 stories, not so much,
Okay.
because I mean, mixed use could be 5 stories.
Yeah, I mean, that's an interesting theory.
Don't
You all
we get into a building code issue going from 4 to 5 stories?
It's 3 to 4.
It's 3 to 4 stories.
Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah,
I've been from it too
it's an
long.
exponential increase.
Are we done with this chapter?
Well, no one else wants to limit apartments to.
Yeah, it's just a thought, because I feel like, you know, you're seeing these 3 stories and everybody's kind of getting shocked from it. And then once we have a 5-story, even a bigger shock.
Yeah, it would.
Got 5-story, new 5-story apartments already out there, so,
Do we have some?
yeah,
And the senior ones.
the senior.
Oh, you mean on,
Okay,
You just don't see them
Boundary
on
Street.
roads.
yeah,
you're saying on Boundary?
which set, this one set back behind the, like 50s motel or whatever. So it's very odd, I mean, it's just,
I'll tell you,
right now, it's pretty odd, but.
the one project I'm really happy about is the bowling alley, the old bowling alley. You might not like what the architecture is, but boy, is it an improvement of
Oh,
what
yeah,
was there.
he did it at some point.
And he's done a great job with the landscaping too, so far.
Can you go to the last page of section 4? F contributing building, it's the very last, I think it's 56 to 56. I brought this up at their April public hearing, but it didn't get addressed. It says property, blah, blah, blah. Should not be removed, rendered non-contributing, to make way for new construction. I'm not saying I'm taking a position, all I'm gonna say is, except as set forth in section 9.10, as such removal or other activity is approved by the HRB. Because we have yet to get to that 9.10, and we might have some, when we get there, there may be some provision for some removal, you know, some certain circumstances. So instead of just saying that they should be removed here, which seems to be presupposing what we're going to say in section 9.10. My language again is except as set forth in section 9.10, as such removal or other activity is approved by the HRB.
What I heard HRB say today in our meeting was,
So it just was except as set forth in section 9.10, as such removal or other approvals are approved by the HRB, yeah. Or other, no, excuse me, or other activities are approved. Instead of that as there. Yeah, there you go. That's all I'm doing.
HPF conversation today in our meeting, this stronger task force was saying that they would be willing to downgrade a contributing building to a non-contributing building if it was in such a disrepair that it was not feasible to repair it back to contributing structure. Now, I didn't pin him down on that, but I heard him say that, so that might be a way that would be able to happen.
But I mean, they don't determine what's contributing to this, and I mean, they don't survey it, but whatever, so.
So you may not be given.
Yes, no.
Is
Yes.
there anything else? And if not, we will try our best, we're gonna try a little bit to kind of look this again, since there's some changes. Try to put an AI, but we got 2 weeks, so it might be, packet might be late, but 2 week things close to a. Votes. Final vote.
About. It'd be an easy yes or no, I think. About PUDs, for new PUDs. Do we really want to keep that option open for somebody to do their own PUD, their standalone unique ordinance for their own property that you have to administer, track, I don't know, then half of them, then they want a development agreement. I don't know what those, what out. But anyway,
The only reason I would say yes is because we have a development that has an issue that's already come to the planning commission like 2 years ago. They still haven't worked out, but they're looking to help. They haven't.
but if they, isn't there a way, or could there be a way to do something in the code? We've got the whole code open now, you know, if we're changing it. If they have this issue, maybe somebody else does and it can be corrected now.
I mean, it's at your will.
I mean, I don't know what their problem is, but, or what their issue is, but I just,
They wanted to add commercial and industrial uses to. They wanted to go beyond what a facility that they're doing would usually do as an accessory to their facility. Does this make sense? So if I was operating a facility with the usual accessory uses, they want to go beyond that. And the zoning didn't really, the zoning was like a residential form-based code that was requiring them to do like frontage and windows and all this other stuff, and also didn't really specify that, so that's the issue. But yeah, PGs are a disaster.
the other ones, legacy ones could stay,
Well,
but
those
there's
have-
no new ones, so they could.
Yeah, PUDs are a disaster, so I would support that.
A disaster.
Well,
I
I mean, I don't know of one that really kind of, at least in my career, that kind of delivered as intended.
We have great.
I've
Alpharetta.
worked on some PUDs that, a lot of them actually, that worked out great.
Yeah.
I think it always comes down to this vesting, huh?
It's my opinion.
No, I understand everybody.
You know, again, we worked in Oregon County, their PUDs were, they started out, they looked good, and then by the time they got built, they were.
Well, what they did,
So many administrative adjustments and such that, they became
well,
horrible.
part of it may be all the administrative adjustments that are allowed. You have to have certain levels of certain kind of things can be done at an administrative level, and other things have to go back, to a full-blown public hearing. And if they're written in such a way that they can make any kind of changes at an administrative level. I mean, these PUDs or whatever you call them, these legacy PUDs that I've seen, those documents let them get away with murder. I mean,
That's what you're gonna get, that's what.
well, that's not if you write your regulation the right way, where there's a certain level of, sort of that 10% kind of, I mean, there's a certain level of adjustment. I'm recognizing that when you do a PUD, you can't get it 100% right when you do it. When you have fundamental changes to the thing, that it has to all be defined.
Again, it
So the regulator,
a good planning commission, a good city council, and there are a cycle of things, and there are certain times where there's a certain cycle where you might not have all of those things in alignment, and you might get the developer kind of dictating. the terms.
well, I can give you a PUD regulation that would work for you, that would limit the amount of those adjustments.
You gotta have a sunset on it too.
And you have to have these sunsets, they just can't go on forever.
I just think, one example I think of is the master plan for that air junction PUD where the Walmart is. And they had a master plan that showed smaller commercial buildings around. And then what comes back is a gigantic Walmart.
Well, that's because they allow, the regulation allows.
But then, well, no, the master plan is just an idea. So they went to court, I don't know, so I just.
What I'm saying is that even when you're doing a PUD regulation also, it just can't be complete carte blanche where you can do anything. I mean, the regulation has to limit, the idea is to provide the flexibility so that a developer can basically write its own code, but within that, in terms of once the planning decision makers make the decision, the amount of adjustment in that has to be limited by virtue of that regulation.
Well, is ours?
So what you see is what you get, huh?
Is ours up to that level?
Probably not, I haven't
Or
looked
get
at it.
one.
I mean, no, it's just the question becomes,
Why don't we,
kind of we're kind of at the end, and if we wanna come up with a whole new PUD in less than 2 weeks.
No, let me ask you this, right now, we've eliminated, is that it? It's not allowed.
Well, I mean, no, it's staying in there.
That's.
2.8.4, and there's
It just has the process and everything.
2 pages worth.
But I thought somewhere along the line, we said we're not doing these anymore.
I mean, it's pretty much like been an unwritten kind of,
It's
it's
right here,
been
no,
in-
you can do
I,
it.
for some reason, I haven't even looked at it, I'll have to look at it
Yeah.
and see. I'm not prepared.
I think my concern, we were 2 weeks away from maybe a final vote, and I mean, I don't know that we can come up with the whole. I
Well,
mean, this is pretty standard language for a PUD.
well, has this regulation been problematic in the past?
Well, no one's done a PUD since it got adopted.
They've never done one.
Well, and
They
since
did
the
on.
form-based code was adopted,
Form-based.
and then the idea was the form-based code should be able to handle
Oh,
most of these issues that come up, and if it doesn't, I would suggest we need to maybe amend the code, or it can go, somewhere.
And everything's now zoned in the form-based code, so this would have to be an overlay on top of the zone-based code.
well,
So, does it harm anything? That's, to me, it doesn't really harm anything.
I don't mind, my only point was, I don't mind a PUD, and I don't mind a PUD regulation if it's written properly. But if you all don't like it, I don't have a problem getting rid of it, we can always come back and add a better one later on if we want, it doesn't make a difference to me.
I mean, I think.
But
we're
when
just-
somebody submits, then they.
Wait, then can we have the discussion at the next meeting? I'll read it by then, and we'll take a look at
Well,
it.
that, since you've had a lot of experience, because I think that would be good to have those kind of eyes on, since it's still an option. Good to know, because right today, if somebody comes in with a PUD, they're gonna follow what's outlined here, so if it's not.
But the difference though, Libby, is they still have to meet the underlying. Well, I guess they could rezone to a PUD. We could maybe make a change that, a PUD is an overlay only. That could be the change.
Well, they rezoned PUD.
That's usually
That
what
could
you
be the
do.
change, is the PUD would be an overlay to the underlying district, which is.
Well, then I don't know that you're gaining anything. I think the whole idea. is-
Well, that would restrict
Rezone
it.
to a PUD. That's the whole idea of a PUD, is
Yeah.
get out from under all the other regulations. Or at least most of them.
How is that different from the TMD? The traditional.
I mean, that's what you should, I mean, in the future, we would hope that people would take that option, encourage them to take that option. But the TMD is then based on, you still have your transect zones, you'd still have an area that would be T4 and T5 UC, you do it still based on those zones, not whatever they come up
So
with.
they're just gonna rezone the district basically based on the different code.
Yeah. And they have to have, I think, different allocations, 20% T3, I don't know, 40% T4, whatever it is, based on the acreage. But that hasn't been used, I don't think, either.
No, but you're suggesting keep that, just get rid of the T.
Right.
I mean,
Well, I think at this point, it's either or, either keep what you've got or you just leave it.
But no, if you would mind,
I'll look at it.
It's in here, so.
I'll look at it. Did everybody look at these things?
I looked at it, I had some comments on how maybe on the same.
Just, we made some changes.
They do look pretty, just the one under, I think it's a apartment house, you have limited 3 stories on there. Just correct that, because we don't limit it to 3, but otherwise, this is brand new, right? So I mean, it's good, I think, but, because this is the new stuff we were looking for. The only one that I think is still just doesn't, the liner building thing still isn't coming through very well on there. I wonder if you just used the liner building that's out there in the Publix on Ladies Island Drive. Because isn't that the sign building, isn't it the liner?
Which, you mean like the tire store or?
No, the liner building on the side of the Publix.
Where the nails
like a
are,
little
and
secret?
stuff, yeah.
Yeah, that thing worked out actually the way I think you're thinking of. Is that sort of the way that people are thinking of a liner to work? And this, just this picture, I can't really get in my, you can't really make out what's going on there. If you just took a picture of the side of that Publix building, I think you might have a really good example of what it should look like. It's just something, I don't know.
Yeah, and I think we could use one of our apartment towers for the example.
Use a different one.
One that we have here in front of the apartment house.
Yeah, maybe use the one you just showed, the one that's the student housing thing,
Yeah.
if you don't like that.
I think the porch is here like.
Well, that liner building was the one-story liner building. And Paul was kind of. That was the purpose of that one. So
Isn't
we could
it-
have two.
Those are just,
Pedestrian activated liner building.
oh, okay, well, whatever you want.
Does that make some sense?
It's can't really tell from the story here, so.
You guys are all good. Guess we might be a few days late getting a final package, just making sure all this is. I'll try to do the AI with him.
What do we got left then? We do approval on these, what do we got left?
I mean, chapter 8,
Chapter 8, we need to
the
go back
cards
to.
left to go, in comp plan.
Does everybody have a comp plan, current comp plan? Or not?
I mean, we've started meeting about it and talking to our matching for that on that.
Yeah, well. Yeah, that's it.
We need one. We have some. We need one for this. Does everybody else have copies?
This is it, is it?
Yep.
Okay. I got it.
Mine's kind of tore up, I'll
I could use one.
take another one.
Okay.
Make you sure to charge them. $50. It's $50 a comp plan.
Did the city council vote on the suitors and I appointments
This morning, 10.
after those interviews?
I don't think they have formally. They did. You know, they had more last week. They had more interviews.
For planning commission?
Just for all the board of commissions, so I think they're gonna go.
Okay, so the day they had them, that one.
Next week, I think next week. But the other people that apply for the planning commission will drop, so you can go or the only formal out.
They drop themselves out.
They were intimidated after.
I was about to say,
After Bill and I
they-
spoke that night, I guess they just.
They turned tail and
I will
ran.
just tell you, there was the most impressive group of people applying for all those positions on these boards. It was remarkable. The credentials that people came forward with for all these various things.
I think that's pretty. That's what I found in Buford, you've got a lot of people that have come down here. Very.
Yeah. It was really. Yeah, a lot of people there that. Well, we got a lot of retired people. That long, distinguished career.
What is going on Thursday at downtown? Charette,
Oh.
maybe this, everybody wants to know about that one more meeting.
I think we're in and the historic district board is being invited for the Wednesday at 3:00. That was a student. That was very fun.
She said 11 first, but it's 3.
But you're welcome, there's a master.
What is this? The downtown plan, the Main Street operations team has hired a consultant, I guess, an architect, audit. Where are they from? Pelzer? Just between Anderson and Greenman upstate, so
Population.
kind of come up with the downtown plan for downtown Beaufort, like.
Does it include like infrastructure?
Wayfinding,
But if you'd all like to attend, it's at 3:00 at the Dolphin Room on Wednesday.
Or is that just for certain?
That's really an HDRD and we'll be there, but you would definitely, I think, be able to attend.
Where is it?
The Best Western and the Dolphin Room.
Sea Island Hotel. Thanks, you know.
Yeah, downtown, Sea Island.
Across from the marina.
Yeah. You can walk.
And I
Never
think,
heard of the Dolphin Room.
and I think maybe there was one for the public, I don't know, I got it on, I think from the Old Commons, both Thursday at 5. I don't know if it's
That
here
sounds about
too.
right. I think they
Is
have.
that for the
monies
general
already.
public or?
Yeah, public drop-in meeting if you'd like to be part of the stakeholder meeting, I think you would qualify, so you could come at 3.
Wednesday at 3. Sounds like a quick walk. And you can probably park on the street next to my house. Probably have free parking, plenty of free parking.
Waterfront Park, the marina lot is still free, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
They'd be okay during the day.
Really, there was, one section for the electrical vehicle charging.
Mhm.
I wasn't able to get that in.
Level 2 charging station or better. One space.
And that'd be,
One charging unit.
and that's.
Charging unit for 50 dwelling units.
I mean, how does that sound, guy?
We'll have
I've
to
got
talk to this.
kids that are now got cars that they're trying to charge, and there's no place to charge here at all. And the Red House is the only place.
My house,
Well,
Or,
I rent out the garage if you want to.
there you go.
We can work, I can work out some kind of deal with it.
I think it's
You
a
have a-
county lot now, the county
Some
lot.
parking lot
Yeah,
right
well,
there? Oh, okay.
Not satellite, they have
Oh,
a charging station there.
Oh,
The
they
big
do.
thing that's in the parking lot.
Pay for it, or just
I think it's for free.
You know,
You just
when
have to
people ask
get
me
it, I mean, you have to give, preference for county vehicles,
Drive the car
you can't
myself.
leave it there like more than a certain amount of hours, but, you know, it's.
I will do it.
So, I
Back
don't
up.
have an electric vehicle, but
It's
just,
not
I
very convenient.
We have
Right.
a
I
electric
guess you
car,
can-
we have.
want
a
to get in
very
there and then go to Starbucks and get a coffee.
Cylinder pickup truck. And we have a gas guzzling 2005 Mustang GT that you can watch the needle move while you drive, and I figure between the 3 of them, we're carbon neutral.
That's what you think.
And the thing is, I don't drive the Mustang, it doesn't go out very much, so it doesn't, it's balance, it's balance, life is about balance. It's about balance. I have started driving the electric car to work in Bluffton, and it has made a difference in our family household. Total consumption, because my wife works at the library, and she can be in the library 5 minutes from the time she leaves the house, so I've started driving the electric car to Bluffton. She drives a gasoline truck down the library.
What kind of electric car?
A Tesla. You haven't seen it in them?
No, I haven't noticed, I don't know.
It's red.
What is the plate?
RED.
Yeah.
You have the, like, that all glass sort of thing.
Does 1 to 50 sound like it, or I guess they could market their apartments based on having more charging stations, I don't know.
There might be some standard now, was there like a planning advisory service or something came out?
We were 1 for 25 in Colorado, so.
That's sounds more appropriate.
Yeah, maybe let's do 1 to 25.
1 for 10.
1 for 10, and there ain't that many electric.
Wow.
Yeah. And there might not be, it seems like hybrids are.
And they're plug-in hybrids too, so.
That's 5 o'clock, waterfront committee, meeting is gonna be broadcast.
I don't know, that's right here, I think they want.
Yeah, I'm here. I'm here, because I want to attend that, but I think I'm gonna do it from home, because I've kind of maximized the time I'm gonna spend in the city hall for the day.